Okay, so I think I need to gavel and call the Board of Selectmen's meeting for Tuesday, January 9th, 2018 to order. Happy New Year. Are there any other boards here that need to call themselves to order? Is everyone good? Everyone's good? Perfect. So I think what we've found the last couple years, the most efficient way to get people out of here is kind of to go around the room and see what departments are here. We can always update as people come in. Then I know the bigger departments usually take time, so what I'd like to do is kind of go down the line items, but then try to hit some of the smaller departments that are here first, just so that people don't have to sit all night and wait for DPW or schools. Does that make sense? And then if anybody has like a pressing issue and has to leave or has to get somewhere, just let us know. But I hope that tonight we all can kind of get on the same page. I think we've all agreed the last couple years that we're all on the same team. There's only one pot of money to go around, right? We all have similar goals. We all love this place and are so lucky to call it home. Even more so than after the crazy storm last week. And people who lived, family and friends all over the country were calling me because they were watching the Weather Channel broadcast from T Wharf, and they're like, every one of them who called was like, how lucky are you to live here, which is pretty cool. So if we can let's just go around the table and introduce themselves, and then we'll kind of go around the room and introduce yourself and just say what department you're here for or what group you're representing. So Sarah Wilkinson, Board of Selectmen.
Don Campbell, Board of Selectmen.
Mitch Vieira, Assistant Town Administrator.
Do you need this?
Melissa Tingley, FinCom.
June Michael, FinCom.
Ian Crown, FinCom.
Bill Wagner, FinCom.
Wally Hess, FinCom.
Nina Sheedy, Board of Selectmen.
Denise Donnelly, Board of Selectmen.
Linda Sanders, Town Administrator.
Nicole?
Nicole Altieri, School Committee. Colleen Quinlan, School Committee and Taxpayer.
Tom Baker's Rights Away.
Jim Ugoni, Historical Commission.
Toby Arsenian, Resident.
Cindy Grove, Library Director.
Robert Down, Library Trustees.
Ed Morris, Spaceman from Tetra.
Rob Lugo, Superintendent of Schools.
Scott Story, Ambulance Harbor. Rosemary Lush, Ambulance and Harbor.
Joe Parisi, Director of Public Works. Bruce Reed, DPW Commissioner.
Rich Souza, DPW Assistant Director.
John Horvath, Police Department. Monty Exler, Tech Department.
Eileen?
Eileen Hines, Meeting Support.
And I think this is Rich's first budget meeting here, right? Anybody else? Denise? Whoa, Denise. Wow. Nicole? Wow. Exciting. Okay, so should we, Linda, do you have any? Okay, so.
Do you want this history, or should we just do the, should we just go and look at 18 and requested for 19 and my recommended column? What I did here is, as I have done in years past, I put a column in for each of you and then combine them there, but you might, if you discuss it, you might just want to agree with one. Or
Got it, just in case we don't agree. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it easy for board members in FinCom to just have 18 and then the 19 request in Linda's? Is that, okay, and then we can always scroll back if we need to? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Is that helpful? Okay, great. Okay, so why don't we, I think we're gonna come to some small ones soon, so wanna just start at the top for now, and then we can always kind of come back.
We do have to see the account, though.
Yeah, so we can always come back if we wanna have a big discussion on one that no one's here for. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay, great. First we have moderator. Bob's not here to argue for his $242. Moving on, selectmen. Are there any issues on any end with the selectmen's budget?
Did you have a chance to look at it? Because didn't we find that we moved some stuff around?
Yeah, if you could just explain any changes that you guys made, that would be helpful.
Yeah, Debbie told us basically that she's always transferring something from one to another, so, the bottom line, was it 2% or under? Oh, I think it was 1.6%.
It was just under.
Just under 2 cents, so, 2%, so this is, so you'll see everything is the same until you get down to the expenses, and then, I don't see anything different here.
No. Just your salary's different, that might be where it is,
The
which is a
contract, maybe.
Yep, I think
Um,
that's the only difference in this one.
I thought we did, didn't Debbie tell us there was something she wanted different in the expenses?
Yeah, probably.
Bill, do you know?
We did reorganize.
There's a double count on operating expenses
The what?
and operating expenses. 48,000 is actually the youth services. Youth center operations, so it's there twice.
Oh, it is, it's under
Oh, my
operating,
goodness.
and we just saved ourselves 48,000.
Yeah,
5
hey.
minutes in.
The-
Good to go.
Okay, that one's gone.
I do have another question,
Yeah.
and it pertains not just to this, but to everything. The labor items shown are for what was appropriated in FY '18, which was before any increases that were granted July 1st. So those increases don't get reflected in these numbers.
That really, I modified them all. Do I have an old version of this?
I don't know.
Okay.
That
So-
was my earlier
So,
observation.
so
but-
those numbers might have to be updated, but the July 1st numbers would be actual,
Right.
right? Okay, so we can always update those later, just to save time.
I just wanna take a quick look, we don't need to go back to 2008, but, if they were level funded. I thought we did an adjustments except for this year, so. No, these are after the, these are the amended, labor lines. But in FY '19, it's just level unless there was a contract.
Yep,
Okay,
okay.
But 18 has been amended,
okay, so we're good,
yeah.
Bill?
That would be good, yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so any other questions on Selectmen's budget? Okay, moving on, Selectmen's committees, Historic Commission. Jim, did you have any comments on your?
I can't see it, was there any money allocated?
You feel free to come sit if you want. And Paul's gonna be late, so if it's easier to see, feel free to sit in the middle seat.
I'm good.
Okay.
I don't know, I know in the past we had a few dollars allocated towards some of our administrative needs, et cetera, and then those went to zero. And this year, what we really were hoping for and asked for and spoke to Mitch about consideration was some administrative help.
Yep, it looks like we have 2,400 in there for administrative.
That sound right to you, Mitch? Okay,
Yeah,
because
great.
Mitch worked the hours, a few hours a week, and
Yeah.
that would be wonderful.
Great, okay, any questions for anyone on that? No?
I can't follow, this is jumping all around the place.
Okay.
Oh, I was trying to get rid of extraneous columns. I'll stop now.
Sometimes it's
Like,
easy to
whoa.
follow, I mean, like I do it on my,
Oh, this is so tiny.
it's too tiny for you. Okay.
Thank you.
Next year we'll blow it up. You mean,
For us
and
old
me.
For us old people, yeah.
Okay, so all good?
Thank you.
Great, okay,
Now I can see it.
let's see, moving on, FinCom. Bill?
We increased the initial reserve, not from what was appropriated in 18, because there were adjustments in 18 at town meeting, but from what was originally requested. So An additional $6,000 was put in, which is equal to the 2%.
Okay. Any questions on that? Any other questions from FinCom? No? Okay. And let me know if I just wanna keep moving, but, cause I know that what usually happens is we get to the end and we're all like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, town accountant,
You
nothing,
can see
right?
that's.
Yep. Assessors, I'm just gonna kinda fly.
I just had a question about software maintenance contracts and the individual budgets and why that isn't part of IS&IT.
Monty, do you wanna answer that?
So there's.
Most of them are except for the financial system. And why did we end up leaving it there?
And the assessors?
No, accounting.
Town accountant. There was another one that had it as well.
That should be for about 65,000.
Yeah.
That's for the financial system.
No, we know.
Why is it not in your budget?
I wasn't in that meeting.
This happened a couple of years ago and you said something about, hey, they use it, why don't you put it in there? We can easily put it in the IT budget.
It just struck me as.
Do you
You
remember a
guys-
reason why, or Mitch, do you remember?
No, I mean, it technically wasn't my project.
Right.
And so I wouldn't be in charge of managing who's in it, who's out of it, who's supporting it contract-wise, and
Oh, that's why we did it, because, it was a monthly license thing or something like that,
Gary.
and they were on top of
Gary
the
was
operation.
managing the whole project.
Okay, just.
What would where would the selectmen like it, do you think?
Should stay where
Well,
it
it
is.
just seemed to me that because we were centralizing everything into, your jurisdiction, that there were a few others where the software maintenance contracts were part of the actual budgets, and that surprised me. So it was just a question I had, and I don't know whether we wanna consider consolidating all of it into IS&IT.
Who oversees it? Who takes care of it? Who's the, because it sounded like it was broken out apart from that.
Well-
Does that come under what you do, Monty? Do you take care of that
It
64,000?
sounds like no.
No, it sounds
No,
like.
it's in accounting for the accounting to pay the invoices. It can go to IT.
But Donna's asking who actually.
Who actually manages that money? Who
That
takes
software.
care of that money, that software?
That
Who-
software.
Who does that? That's who, to me, that's where it should lie.
The tech department supports the software, the accounting
You could see accounting.
pays the bills.
But it's hosted, so it's not like it's in-house, we're not updating the software, it's all paid subscription.
Do you
Right,
have
so it's
anything to do with that?
No.
Right, so I
So
think
that
it
makes
probably
sense.
makes sense
Yeah.
then that it's in that department.
Yeah.
If it was software that you oversaw, I think it would make
It'd
sense.
just be me writing putting in the
Right,
schedule.
which,
Okay.
which I think we found in the past can actually be a detriment, you know what I mean, because it's money that you actually can't control, but it looks like you can. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
That's probably why it landed here.
Right,
Okay, thank you.
but we should note and kind of follow that, just, cause if that changes, it might make sense to put it.
That's scheduled to go up 5% a year, I believe, from that company.
I don't remember.
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, that's assessor, no, that's under,
That's accounting.
Okay. Assessors next, 158. It looks like everything is staying the same there. Okay,
Yep, same bottom line.
okay,
A lot of these are gonna be quite easy.
yep.
Treasure collector,
On line, 248, what is contractual services? It just seemed like a big number for, something that was not very specific. Anybody know?
Still in the assessment.
Yeah,
we're on assessors. It's, for valuations.
oh, okay.
Now, what we could do, the general ledger number, the account number will, signify that it's contractual services, but we can put the name in
That'd be
about,
helpful.
if they don't use it for anything any
than-
other contracts.
yeah.
But,
Right, because does that happen every year? They do revaluation services?
they pay, what's his name, to go out and update valuations every year.
Every year?
Sometimes it gets big, every third year. Oh, no, they take it out of the capital every third year, so.
Oh, okay, so it builds up.
My number, I'm having a But I'm having a hard time following just because my line numbers aren't lining up
Oh,
with
no,
what you
mine
have.
aren't either.
And I'm like kinda bouncing around here trying to find everything.
Yeah,
It's making
cause
it a
on
bit
mine,
difficult.
it's 226, that line.
Oh, that's
That's
because,
the accountant. That's the accountant, not the assessors that you're in, isn't it?
well, it's also because you're using the, this, let me open up
Right.
that column, so
Yeah,
you,
it says yours 226.
Yeah.
oh,
Yes.
Yeah, mine too. Yep. So this is just the Excel row number.
Yeah.
But you
Right,
wanna,
but
yeah,
going
so she
up-
just needs to, you just need to make column A bigger.
yeah, I see, you need to fix where it went off, too.
Yeah.
There.
Great.
So column A bigger
A
or
little bit bigger.
bolded or?
I can see it, as long as
Now
they
it's
line
good.
up with what I'm looking at,
Now we're
that's
good.
all I.
This should.
Okay. Okay. So that was under accounting, right? Assessors.
Assessors.
Assessors, okay,
Oh.
treasurer collector, any questions, treasurer collector? Okay, most of that is required anyway. Legal,
Why did I just put this in my,
you?
what?
Sadly, I don't think that's true.
No, I don't. It's requested. I wonder if it's a formula in there.
Okay. FinCom, anything with legal?
In the printed version of legal, you didn't have all these numbers. It's a little, you didn't have the 197,000 in the printed version.
What printed version? Oh,
Oh, under,
What you
under LS.
handed out, under LS, you had a negative number.
yes,
Yeah,
because
that
I
was a
just found
mistake.
a
That's a
formula
mistake.
Oh, okay.
mistake. That's fixed.
All right, so-
Sadly, it's not negative 26,000.
Right.
It's closer to 197.
So basically, the LS column is pretty much the same as the requests, there aren't any big
The-
changes?
There are very few changes. I'd say 5 that I'm recommending something different from what was requested. 4 or 5 is all.
So why have you, who requested that, 34.5?
I did.
You did, okay, and what's the reason, just so?
We moved it because for Labor Council, we always have to transfer out of the general to pay the labor. So if you notice, the general fees went down, but the whole bottom line went up 2%.
Got it, okay.
Yeah.
So I have a question about the line general legal fees. How did you estimate that number, Linda, the 197?
So she kept it the same as 220, but she split it.
No, I did go up.
Oh, you did go
By
up?
2%.
It went up a little bit.
I,
2%,
it went
yeah.
up by 2%, but then I subtracted,
Yeah.
The bottom line.
subtracted.
No, I see that, but I'm just wondering,
How'd you
So,
come up with the number?
Do you think it's gonna be that high next year?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
can tell you why later, but yeah, I think there's a couple other
Okay.
things cooking.
Okay.
I just wondered what the thinking was there. So it was just basically keeping it the same and adding a couple of percent.
Yeah, added, yes, and then just shuffling
Right.
from
and-
where,
Right,
how we use it.
okay.
Now, if we don't need it, great,
Yeah,
'cause it'll just
know.
go back, yeah.
You can always vote. You agree, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess since I just had to take 3 days off to,
Correct.
to go to court
Yes.
for something, I think that's probably not a good sign, right? Okay, any other questions on legal? Okay. Personnel board,
What are, it's line 287 and line, oh, that's weird. Under human oh, I'm sorry, it's the next one.
okay. Any issues with personnel board? Nope, okay. Did you have a question under HR, Denise?
Yeah, but the numbers are different again. Oh, there it is, 287, 286 on yours. HR operating expenses, what is that?
So that is my general operating lines. Training comes out of there.
Okay.
Investigations comes out of there. All the functions for the department come out of
Okay.
that one line.
I'm so excited to actually like see the HR department line items in action. It's very exciting. After
busy.
being on the board for a long time and being like, we don't have an HR department.
And that department is very busy.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
good. Okay, next, IS&T.
Labor reserve.
Hopefully the labor's level until
Yeah.
the selectmen
Did
decide.
you request any changes?
I targeted the changes.
So you're asking for like 6,000 more?
Could you, show the next column over what was actually spent in fiscal 17?
Yeah.
Because I see a
wanna see it?
reduction in what we actually spent, so the question is, what are we going to do differently to spend less money?
So we should probably show 17.
Yeah, well, the big one seems to have been communication website and internet service, where you spent 80,670 last year, and now we're budgeting 10,000
That was for the emergency communication system.
for the what?
Emergency communications.
That all would have been capital projects.
Not, it was a transfer from
The
FinCom reserve.
transfers came in, so that was capital work that
So
doesn't
they're
belong
talking
in
about
there.
Well, it
these
was,
two things.
it was not a capital project at the time. That was the fall FinCom reserve transfer.
So we transferred it into operations
Yeah.
instead of properly creating a account
We,
for it.
that could have been done right. It was, I guess it was not specific on the
Okay,
request.
so that 80,000 is an anomaly that we spent in that category this last year.
Yeah, if you go back one more year, it's the same.
All right,
number,
that makes me
10,000.
feel much happier.
Yeah. A little more relaxed.
Another 70,000 we don't have to spend next
That's
this
right.
year.
Right. But wait a right, it's back to 15,000 the year before. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Any other questions on that one? June, you guys good on that?
Are we on target this year, or have we seen increases of more than 0.5% in some of these software contracts?
Monty?
I can't think of anyone. There are probably some minor contracts that have bigger percentages, but nothing that can't be juggled, absorbed.
Okay, so you're saying you can live within this, that's nice to hear.
So what's the classroom hardware line?
That's specifically like projectors and remotes and speakers and all kinds of stuff like that.
And that's not a school expense?
No, that was moved from the school budget into the
Into
IT.
IS&T.
Yeah.
But that's not
But
capital?
It's not,
No, it's like, it's up, he's
that's
upping
the
it like
next question, but
$1,000.
why isn't it capital?
Right.
Why isn't it part of the equipment replacement capital budget?
You gonna answer that?
That was part of the original budget that I
That's where it
inherited
was,
from-
and
For expenses for,
It may be that long-term, maybe that's something
Gets
capital could look
Yeah.
at, maybe that it gets moved out of there to get on a regular replacement schedule.
It's everything from adapters
Yeah.
to computer laptops.
Just miscellaneous.
yeah, it's more than just computer.
Yeah, I mean, and there is stuff that needs to be replaced outside the cycle, right? Like-
Yeah, it's
As it
batteries,
breaks.
it's whatever the school,
Right.
in the classroom needs to operate,
Right,
not big ticket items.
no, we seem to constantly get requests for battery-operated pencil sharpeners.
So it's
And like,
more,
when I was young, you had to find a closet and
Right,
sharpen your
here's
so
pencil.
it's more
Just
maintenance
spending
and
it.
small equipment replacement than part of an overall plan to keep upgrading computers.
Say that again?
It's more like maintenance, like batteries
Yeah.
and gizmos than,
Yeah.
that's more maintenance instead of being
Right.
part of a computer replacement project or upgrading
Supplies
project.
and maintenance, yeah.
More incidental than planned.
Exactly, yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Okay. Great, moving on, tax possessed land. Is there a reason we're just, is that going up to 3? Oh, no,
Well,
it's the same.
Right now, it's the same. The treasurer has taken some properties, so we might need more, but
Okay.
until we know for sure.
Okay, maybe we could have her come in soon and talk. Every so often, it's good to have her come in and give us an update. Okay. Yeah, I mean, not
okay.
even tonight, but just regular select. It's good for us to know kind of what's in the queue, what we think might actually. Great. Okay. Town clerk, Pat or Linda are in there, right? Okay. It looks like an increase in the assistant town clerk's salary.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that was approved by the Personnel Board at their last meeting, and it'll actually be in front of the board to approve an updated compensation schedule at their next meeting. She achieved an advanced certification, so they provided an adjustment for that.
Okay. Any further questions on that? No? Okay.
Is that how it happens, or it's just, is it a one-time, or is there kind of a schedule on that, or is this just because of the certification?
This
side?
was a particular certification that triggered a base adjustment.
That department, that happens occasionally. They get certified at different levels. I remember Pat going through that as well.
Yes, she achieved her certified municipal clerk designation.
Okay.
She gave it right back,
Okay.
$1,000.
Okay, moving on. Elections.
What's that purchase of services for in this year?
Was that the clickers?
Clickers.
Oh, the clickers. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Elections? No? Okay. Moving on. Concom. There's seems to be the same, right? Yes.
Pretty steady, yeah.
Yep. Okay. Moving on. Millbrook Meadow. Okay. Rights of way. Just yell or shoot up your hand if you want. I'm just gonna kind of move through these. Beautification committee. Planning board.
Totally level.
Okay. Zoning board of appeals.
I actually had a question on planning board purchase of services for $30,000. Does anybody know
The
what that is?
planner.
Oh, so it's
Kurt
actually
Baker.
his salary?
Consultant. Yeah,
Okay.
he's on contract, he's not
Oh,
an
okay.
employee.
Thank you.
Okay. Down to community development.
Yeah, that's, we've been learning as we go on this one. This is outside of the guidelines. Mitch, you wanna, talk about some of this that I can tell you the detailed wages for $10,000 are our commitment to support the police details for the festivals for.
Police and fire.
And fire,
yeah.
I keep forgetting about
Yes.
fire.
Great.
That's why I'm glad I turned to you.
And that's a good number?
That
That's a good
covers,
number?
that covers $2,000 for each of the events.
Okay,
That
great.
For illumination, 4th of July harvest, New Year's Eve, and Motif One Day.
Okay.
The organization is responsible for the rest.
Okay.
That covers, I believe, a significant amount, Chief, if that's correct. Yep. In most cases, that covers all of it.
Perfect.
They've been struggling in its
Yeah.
community.
Yes, so purchase of services on this one, we have an adjustment. This is where our new community engagement consultants, again, a consultant, so not an employee, that position lives. We're seeking an increase there to increase the number of hours. Right now, we get roughly 15 hours a week. And that isn't anywhere near, now that we're starting to actually move forward and pick up steam with our presence on social media, our presence in the tourism world. We need to have a body there to function and carry out that mission for us. So we're looking to increase that to get some additional time for that position.
So quick question though, but I
Sure.
know the person who's in that position now, does multiple things?
She would phase out some of the other things to accommodate
Okay.
increasing her time here.
Okay.
And do you have a sense of metrics in place, Mitch, to measure her success overtime? Like, are we making?
Yeah, like I feel like we need to see more. I just feel like we need more
Right.
information.
And yes,
to
she
go,
started
like,
in
to
Sep-
bat for this.
Yeah, she started in September.
Yeah.
So so you, by the next cycle, you'll have a full year of metrics to work off of. We've seen, certainly, plenty of, I would say anecdotal information we can share, the connection she's made, the links with Gloucester, with north of Boston, a variety of areas that she's had some outreach in. So we're putting in some benchmarks to be able to measure some of the return to the extent that's possible for that
Right.
position over this next year.
And we're going to, the three of us are going to sit down and talk about her plan and what she's doing, and then we're gonna bring her to you guys for a briefing, so you can get a sense for what she's doing and re-guide her if she's missing something you think is important, or.
Promotional service.
In the digital sense, I've been following her quite a bit on what she's doing. She's doing a good job.
Oh, she
You
is.
know, she's doing a good job. And I know just the night of the tree lighting, when we stopped at the House of Pizza, and the people next to me were from Auburn or somewhere far out. I just asked them, how'd you find out about us? And it was through social media. You know, and that's just one example. And I know that doesn't tell the whole story, but, you know, it's telling.
Yeah.
The last several.
I don't doubt her value.
Yeah.
I just, for us to go to bat to double, to double a line item without having a full year under us, I just think we need to have some.
Sure, and this is I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, wasn't there $20,000 already that was allotted to that position prior to that through,
There was no position
well,
before.
to?
There
the-
was a marketing line that,
Right.
that we finished that contract with the
Prior.
firm. And because, we were in the development, process with this whole department, we found that we needed, green energy really needs more money than $200, but we can take it from somewhere else. This money is supposed to pay for the housing needs assessment. Have we heard back from that?
It closes on February 9th.
Okay. Band concerts have stayed pretty much the same for a dozen years, so, we just upped it like $76.
One more one.
Advertising went way down because we're using more social media now. We stopped doing research for the moment because we have to build these other areas.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the big ones are increasing, her hours, and what was the other one that went way up?
We have a whole plan, but yeah, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Any other questions on this? Okay. Okay, so, moving on to police. Chief, welcome. Eat the snacks, eat the snacks. We're gonna take a break in a few minutes. I'm gonna make everyone eat something.
No pressure.
That's what the Italians
You are
do.
Italian.
I am so Italian. Welcome.
Happy to be here.
What's up? Go ahead.
All right, so, good evening, everyone. So the police department has made some steady progress over the past couple of years with support of the Board of Selectmen, Town Administrator's Office, and the Finance Committee. We're continuing to ask for resources in the form of money so we can put a couple more people on the department. Currently, we have 18 full-time employees. We have a 19th employee that's a temporary full-time employee, and our emergency staffing relief factor really demands that we have 20 full-time employees. And what does that mean, and how is that calculated? That's calculated based on the amount of accrued time that our full-time employees have contractually that have been negotiated through collective bargaining, things that we can't control like injured on duty, long-term sick, administrative time, time at the police academy. We send officers to the police academy. Some of you may or may not know, they're gone for about 6 months, and during that 6-month period of time, they cannot work a single shift in the town of Rockport. So we had 2 retirements last year, which impacted our department, obviously. We have 2 officers currently in the police academy. that will be graduating in April of 2018. We have one officer that's anticipated to retire this calendar year. We anticipate putting at least one more police officer in the full-time police academy during this calendar year of 2018. So what does that all mean? Currently, as I stated at the very beginning, we have 18 full-time operational employees, if you will, and that means full-time police officers, including myself, and/or civilian dispatchers, and one temporary full-time civilian dispatcher, which gives us 19 total full-time police officers currently. I'm asking for that number to go to 20 because our staffing relief factor is set at 19.26, currently based on accrued time off and contractual obligations. So you can't have a quarter of a person. So rather than round down, I'd rather round up because we have to get above that 19.26 to have any impact on the overtime in the police department. So in order to realize and reduce overtime, we need to get above that minimum staffing number. And everything that I'm speaking to you about now, just keep in mind this is minimum staffing. This is 3 department members working at any one time. That's 1 officer or dispatcher on the desk and 2 officers on the road. So it's just getting you 3 people on a shift, 3 shifts a day. So we have a minimum staffing of 9 department members, if you will, working during a 24-hour period of time. So the increases that I've requested are in the categories of police officer wages. It's about a $20,000 increase, which will allow us to hire another full-time police officer. A starting salary for a Rockport police officer is about $48,484. We have realized a little bit of a savings over the last actually over last year, because we had 2 senior officers retire in the department. So through attrition, we're gaining a little bit of a cost savings in the salary category. So another $20,000, approximate $20,000, will get us another full-time police officer, which will impact in a positive way our staffing, our delivery of service, and look to reduce overtime as well. The second category that I'm looking for an increase is civilian dispatcher wages. As I stated earlier, we have 1 temporary full-time employee in the form of a dispatcher. I'm looking to make that position permanent because that will get us to the 20 full-time employees that I'm seeking. Another category, police overtime, is a small increase that I'm asking for there over what we're currently budgeted for this year. And really all that is really tied back to contractual obligations around vacation time, sick time, and a small amount of money that's earmarked for investigations when officers have to come in either off hours or conduct an extensive or more in-depth investigation. And the final category that I'm looking for an increase in would be the permanent intermittent officer category. And what that is that's our reserve police officers. We're able to fill shifts using those officers in certain circumstances at a cost savings because they're not full-time officers and they work at a reduced salary, but they are fully certified through the state. So I am looking to increase that budget and fill shifts that I can contractually with our reserve police officers for us at a cost savings. In a nutshell, that's what I'm looking for on the police side. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
And you'll see, I agreed with them down to the permanent intermittent. The request was for 4, and I recommend 2.
And why is that?
Because the overall request, the police department has been increasing like $100,000, taking $100,000 off, which is almost half of their discretionary budget. And I asked the chief if he could get it down at least 30, I can't remember how much down, and I said, do you need the police officer more or the extra 2 PIs? And he chose the officer, which affects the health insurance that I put in for that.
So can you live with that?
I can live with whatever the table gives me, and I'll make it work, and I'll stretch, and I'll be appreciative. But it's really a shell game, folks. It really depends on what we have occurred during the course of the year, how healthy we can keep our police officers. You know, it's a dangerous job. Rockport is safer than most communities, but things happen here like they happen everywhere. So the town administrator, the assistant town administrator, myself sat down, talked about the budget, answered a lot of good questions, and you know, I'm very comfortable with you know, what we discussed, what Linda has approved, and you know, I'll continue to work hard for you no matter what you give me with regards to resources. That's not going to change.
Oh,
But-
let's take some off.
So
But
you're
the-
very, you're comfortable with the 2 as opposed to the 4?
Yeah, so what it is we have a police officer retire this year. We're anticipating it. We're going to continue to hire those reserve officers. There's a certain amount of expense that goes with each reserve officer to put them through the Reserve Police Academy, get them properly trained, outfit them with a uniform. As I said, it's a shell game with respect to resources within the department. It's not a hard and fast 4 versus 2. It's overall how you can shift the money within that category to bring people on, what time of year they come on, when the academies are being held. So asking for the police officer at the tune of a little bit more than $20,000 will help us immensely with staffing. It'll help us stabilize and allow us to realize a reduction in the overtime, as long as the officers that I have make it into work. And, you know, a little bit of padding in that permanent intermittent category with the money that's there will certainly allow us to help cover shifts that we need to, that I can do contractually through, you know, the collective bargaining agreement. So I'm very comfortable with what Linda has approved from her position. I think it's, you know, it's an increase over last year. I'm okay with doing it sequentially. You know, I've had very good conversations with members of the finance committee. They understand the collective bargaining piece of this, which many times gets forgotten about. So it's important. I believe the town of Rockport and the community here has, you know, has become accustomed to a certain level of service, and you know, we owe it to them to continue to provide that service. So this is pretty much what it takes. Like I said, I'd be more than happy to continue with what we have in front of you and answer any more questions that you have.
What
You're
are the numbers in yellow? I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead, Joe.
With the numbers in yellow on the, you know, out to the right under in-service, are those totals of some of the differences? that you had, or
Yes,
what?
yes, I should have removed those. That was calculations about, look at, you went up 107,000 in your budget in between like 16 and 17,
Those
17.
are- So those didn't represent
No, they
wages
don't.
of
I should
people
have,
we'd like to add, that's what I thought they were.
I should have removed them.
Okay. All right, we'll ignore those.
So for me, it's really about the full-time staffing, and
Yeah.
I guess I'll close with that. So when I came on in May of 2015, we had 19 full-time employees. We were cut back to, we lost 2 dispatchers. We had 2 dispatchers that were cut, but I was given an additional police officer. So I went from 19 to 17, back up to 18, which is where I currently am, plus a temporary full-time, which brings me to 19. All the numbers that I've done over the past 2+ years all speak to, we have to get to that number 20 in order to have any type of impact. All things remaining equal elsewhere within the department, we have to get to that number 20 to be able to have an impact on the overtime.
And we've seen that in every report you've shown, everything you've shown us has shown. over
And
the
that was
past
gonna
2
be my
years.
question, is if you get to that number 20, how does it impact the other numbers? And obviously, you're bringing on an officer, so now you have salary, you have benefits, you have all that stuff, but in the overall, how does it affect the overtime budget?
Sure, as long as we get to that number 20 and we have people, we have our officers, we keep them healthy, we allow them to take, you know, an appropriate amount of time off, which I think is also important for the mental health and wellness of police officers. During the next 2 years, we're gonna be putting people not only in the reserve academy, but in the full-time academy to cover retirement, attrition. We may lose employees for other reasons or purposes. If we can stay with around that 20 number, we can definitely have an impact on the overtime, because we'll be able to allow officers to take time off without having to backfill their positions on overtime, or even having to fill them with a reserve police officer, even at a cost savings, because we'll be above that minimum staffing of 3 on a shift, that we can give someone the night off and not create any additional impact on the budget.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So,
Any further?
yeah, I'm sorry.
No,
Line
don't
six,
apologize.
it's, in mine, it's line 632.
What's just the name of it?
Computer system maintenance, 690 in yours. Again, just a question about,
So the police they have their own, like, go, I'll let the chief answer.
Correct. So each month, we have a service contract with a local vendor that services our computer system. Every year, that number runs almost to the penny. Sometimes it's over. There's times where we'll contact Monty and say, can you help us out? We're in a bind, and he's always been very good to help us out. So it's about maintenance. It's about internal infrastructure within the department for our system.
right, but I thought, Monty, didn't we have a discussion about your team taking over the maintenance, but you'd have to add a person, is that?
If that was ever put on the table, yeah, we would need.
Yeah, okay. Got it. I just was trying to recall the conversation. Thank you, sorry.
Thanks.
Chief, any other questions?
No, I appreciate the board and the finance committee's work and your continued support of the police department.
You
Thank
know,
you.
I'm excited to see this happen because I know everything we've seen from you really shows that it's necessary.
Thanks. I mean, some of the goals will be, I mean, I'd love to put somebody on foot downtown. I want to get a bike officer out there. I'd love to get somebody down at the beaches on a regular basis in addition to our lifeguards. So, I mean, we get above that 20 number, you're likely going to see a direct impact and more visibility. Because right now, you know, officers are still out there, they're still visible, but it's more in a reactive sense many times than being a little bit proactive. I'd love to get someone on foot downtown in some of the busier areas and times, and I know that would be appreciated as well down there, so.
Yes, just a question, where are lifeguards now?
Oh,
Little
they're
bit
after
farther down.
traffic and
They're
parking,
after traffic and parking.
so right here. Right. And,
Oh, so they're separate from police now?
well, they have been, they're smaller
Right.
departments that the police are responsible for.
Right. I just, while you're in the hot seat, I assume that the improvements and the upping of the budget that we made to the lifeguard system, I mean, I can't tell you the difference
Yep.
on the beaches it was, and the number of compliments we got this year as opposed to complaints the year before. Not
Yes.
sure we could have gone much lower than we were.
Yeah, and I appreciate the comments and we always appreciate the compliments that come, you know, to the department, to our lifeguards or otherwise. The raising the salary for them allowed us to attract a better, more dedicated person for the position, if you will. Still some younger individuals, a lot of them go off to college at the end of August. So the increase that you see in the lifeguards is really, it's based on a 75-day season. So what we do is we go with, you know, it's basically 7 lifeguards a day, 7 hours a day for 75 days, and if you compute out the math, that's what we come up with. There's a small stipend for the lifeguard program supervisor. We likely won't spend that entire budget because as you come to the 3rd week of August, some of the individuals go off to college, and we just physically can't fill those positions on the beach, but it really depends on who we hire. If we hire some individuals that are not going to be college-bound, some younger adults that already are out of school, we'd love to be able to put lifeguards on the beach, you know, through Labor Day weekend, because there's a need there. But just historically, we don't have the bodies to be able to do that, so we don't have the salary costs. But I have to ask what it would cost to run the program for the 75 days, and that's the number you see before you.
Got it. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay, great.
Want to go back up to?
Yeah, sure. Traffic and parking?
So traffic and parking, as everybody knows by now, we're kind of in transition, in the final phase of a transition from mostly a meter-based parking system to a kiosk-based parking system. And this past year in particular, we received more than our fair share of calls and concerns about parking downtown, and I think that's a good thing, because people are increasing their expectation in Rockport with regards to being able to park and have a positive experience here. So I would be more worried if we weren't hearing anything and people were keeping those concerns to themselves. So What you see before you is, what we want to do is what we did with the lifeguard program is really professionalize the traffic and parking program, make it a good positive experience, have education be a good part of it, but also have a strong enforcement piece out there so we gain some voluntary compliance. It costs a fair amount of money to run the system. There are internet fees associated with the parking technology. There's credit card transaction fees that are part of the technology. So that's why you see an increase in the parking meter maintenance category, because there's just the actual electronic, if you will, infrastructure and technology just costs more to run. With that said, if you look at the numbers from this past year alone, we're making more money. And it's absolutely more lucrative, the system that we've developed through the kiosk. And my goal is to put more parking control officers out there, civilian parking control officers, put forward a very robust professional appearance out there, have them educate the public when they come into town. Their goal isn't to hide in the doorways and hop out and issue somebody a ticket. It's to kind of educate them, ensure that they know what the parking rules are, assist them if they need it with the kiosk. But have a presence out there to kind of knock down some of the complaints that come, to the select members, that come into the police department, and kind of give us more of a positive, view, if you will, in the community with regards to visitors coming into town and the parking experiences. We can't stretch the amount of parking spaces we have. I think we can just better manage what we have, and that's really what this budget is aimed at doing. It's kind of self-sufficient. We're making the funds to support the program. We're going to ensure there's very minimal waste here, but we need to improve on what we have currently in place with the parking control officers that we're going to be able to attract, put them in a professional uniform, put them out there, and have them really be an ambassador for the town while they're out there, because they will be very visible. That's the goal.
Any further questions on that? No? Okay. Lifeguards we did.
Fire department.
Fire department?
Mhm.
Looks like fire department went down a little bit, their request. Right. Stipends?
Yes, the stipends went
Okay.
down. I don't know the answer to that, do you?
Neither do I. Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you very much.
They shouldn't have gone down. That's going to be one that will be adjusted when we make the COLA changes, so that should not have gone down.
Oh, that's right. I adjusted this from after the
That one, yeah,
labor
so it'll have
reserve, so
another-
we didn't
Yep.
put that one in.
Okay.
Okay. And the expenses are the same.
Forest fire looks the same. Ambulance.
Relatively look the same, but
Okay.
we've had conversation with Mitch recently, and we'd love to, and we didn't put it in our budget, but we'd love to go back to 2016 to some of the funds that were set aside for EMT wages, where we, meaning the town of Rockport, is in need of some more EMTs to help boost our coverage, and I'm not.
Need the money to
Need the
get
money.
that
I was
to
gonna
happen.
try not to use the word desperately need.
Yeah, so could you guys maybe make a report with like how many you had, like with a breakdown of what the budgeted amount, how many EMTs that gets us, what kind of coverage versus what you would like to see? Or do you already
Well,
have that?
We're working through that process
Okay.
now. It just started
Great.
this
I mean,
week.
we
Okay.
get 24/7 coverage.
Right.
It's just we're running really thin on those that do respond.
Right, just so if we could have the numbers, for example, you have 10 people on call versus you'd love to have 15 on call or some, however.
The composition of the people has been changing. People are working out of town so that we don't have the draw from people who are working in the town to fill the spots. So it's changing and difficult to predict.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
And and the chief can also attest to this, our call volume has increased. We've increased 80 to 100 in 2017.
So maybe Mitch can help you put those numbers all
Yeah,
down,
he
just
said
kind of in a one pager that would be helpful for us to
We were
see.
with him last week and.
Perfect.
we're-
Great. Wow, has it steadily gone up each year, or do you think this was an anomaly?
I mean, it's steadily going up,
The number of calls?
yes.
Interesting.
And there's different types of calls, not just medicals, but, lift assists, refusals, different types of calls that we all, I'm looking at the police department because we all have to deal with them.
Right.
And they're wonderful with us, but we need the transport folks also.
Yeah, yeah.
From the revenue side of it, on the ALS side of things as opposed to the BLS, has there been an increase in the need for ALS coming into town, which I know kind of takes away from the revenue stream that comes in? Have you seen anything with that?
It's stayed about the same. I mean, the criteria has stayed the same. So the criteria to call ALS is the same. We can put together that also.
Yeah, that would
Yeah,
be,
the numbers, we can put that together.
yeah,
We do, the dispatch does a great job with the EMD dispatching, and then if we find when we get to the scene we don't need them, we certainly just, our EMTs say we don't need them, or if they get to the scene and they see that they don't need to be there, then they back off, because it is a financial expense.
right.
So the only time that revenue flips to the second ambulance call, meaning the ALS, is when that ambulance is actually used, is that correct?
The personnel is used, the paramedics come on our truck, so we still get the revenue there, but we do get less revenue
Okay.
because of the paramedics.
If
that
they
do it.
transport with us in the ambulance, we get a small portion of the billable.
And I guess that's what I'm getting at, is how has that been affected? Because I know it's state mandated by when they're called and when they're not, correct?
Right, we
Okay.
can get that figure also, we were,
I'd just like to see what the trend is on that.
yep.
Great. So Mitch, you'll help them get that together? Okay.
We're working
And
on
our
a staffing
rates
plan.
have increased, so we'll be interested, all of us, to see how we make out
Yeah.
in the past 6 to 8 months with the increase.
Thank
Oh,
you.
so when did the increase start?
You approved it.
Oh, the increase that we approved,
Yes,
right,
that
I'm
was back
sorry.
in May, back
Got
in
it,
May,
right,
yep.
yeah. Okay. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I think if you guys can get on our agenda soon, and Mitch can help you get that together, that'd be great. Perfect. Okey-doke. Inspectional services, it looks like these are all the same. Right, and then animal inspector. Down to emergency management, looks the same.
Can you put the categories back? Yeah,
Yeah, I unhid them because they were talking about.
Animal, dog control, same,
Same.
okay. Parking clerk, which has now been moved to
Treasures.
treasurer's office, great. And I assume we've seen some savings there, right, little?
We had a staffing savings of about
Okay.
20,000.
Great, that's good.
And we just keep the tickets in this department,
In the treasurer collector's
no, in the
department?
parking clerk.
Okay.
If you
got it.
notice, this is the only, these expenses are the only ones left that's.
People seem happier coming into town hall as opposed to the old police station. They don't feel like they're going to jail if they have to pay a ticket over there. Any questions on that one?
Nasty.
Okay, moving on to harbor masters. You guys are still here.
We're still here.
Okey doke. And it looks like the same here as well again,
We
right?
had a few concerns.
Okay.
Since that was
Okay,
submitted. In 16, we were cut right in half from the 16 for float maintenance. And after this last storm, we're really going to have to,
yeah, but is
we'll
that?
have it back again.
Do you think that I'm just thinking about this because I've gotten information from the yacht club side too, which, as we know, is underneath
Right.
that is all town owned. Are those more? Do you think maybe capital or FEMA?
We have requests in for capital also.
Okay.
For our routine, maintenance.
Okay.
12,000 annually.
We didn't
Okay.
fund it because it was routine maintenance,
I
right?
think we did actually, hold on.
Cause I mean, clearly that's a number that the town is going to have to, the town is gonna have to pay it, whether it's, government reimbursed or what. I think we just have to kind of figure out the best place for it and how much it's
That's
gonna
just
be.
how to use
Have
the
you guys done any type of assessment yet on all the
Here's the
damage?
Won't be able to until we get a chance to pull some of the floats out.
Harbors.
We're out and about the entire storm. We were able to partially save the skiff floats over Pigeon Cove. They were impaled on one of the pilings over there. We managed to pull a bucket loader from Shaw's parking lot to come over in the middle of the storm and help us lift it off the piling so it didn't get totally destroyed. But until we pull them out of the water and flip them over, we won't really have a good estimate.
Right, and we did watch pilings float around Rockport Harbor, and we won't know till the winter's over, pretty much.
Yeah, so what, early spring, do we have somebody come and do an appraisal, an assessment of underneath there?
You're looking at them, Sam.
Right.
Okay.
The other thing is our, fuel for our personal vehicles was cut in half, and we're finding that's just, not adequate at all. I mean, we use our personal vehicles for all of the work we do, not having a town vehicle.
We went out, we purchased our own scooters that get 110 miles to the gallon. We're doing everything we can to squeeze the fuel money, but we don't have enough after you cut that.
Right, so how much, so what, do you have number, like what?
Well, we were getting the 2,666.60, and then it was cut in half.
Okay, so maybe you can work with Mitch on what actual, it's more easier to say this is what we think will actually be spent than to just go back to 16. Do you know what I mean?
We certainly can do that.
Yeah, because my guess is it's probably more than what was allocated in 2016. I don't know with the price of, maybe it's not, I don't know. But I think just to try to figure out what you think the actual numbers would be, and then we can make some adjustments to those. Because obviously you shouldn't be paying out of your own pocket for fuel.
We don't think so either.
Right, yeah. Okay, Mitch, can you work with them on that?
Sure, we'll look at, Linda will have that conversation with the budget.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But, Madam Chair, what they may not know is because CIPC hasn't had their last meeting to tell people what we didn't recommend funding, is they requested $20,000 for floats, and we made a note that says it should go into operations, and it didn't go into operations. And we decided to fund 10,000 of it from the Waterways Fund, and to try to move everything into operations, because it's a continual maintenance. That was our reasoning.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have two issues. I think they probably need an up in their regular maintenance, but then we also have all this storm damage, so it's kind of
Right.
a two-pronged issue.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's probably still a question. So I think this is still a question mark for now until we get some more information. Does that make sense? Okay, I just don't want to hold up tonight because we're obviously not going to have clearer numbers to plug in here, so it's a work in progress. Make sense, FinCom? Okay.
Well, you need to consider harbor rates as well.
Yeah.
So, to cover all the increased expenses.
Could we bring any changes to this budget to get it in the packet in the next selectmen's meeting? Because we have to turn the budget over to the finance committee in a couple of weeks, like where are we?
21st.
So this can't wait.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Okay. Thank you guys. Anything else on your end? Okay. So try to touch base with Mitch and Linda ASAP to get some numbers. Okay.
What are you doing tomorrow?
Great. Tonight, 9 o'clock. Okay. Let's public safety. Okay. We're on to schools, but we're gonna skip schools quickly. Actually, if you guys don't mind, I want to take a 2-minute bathroom, water, snack break, and then come back, do a couple small ones, and then school and DPW. Okay? Okay, should we get going then? Do you want, do you want to do Board of Health? Okay, why don't we skip ahead to Thatcher Island then, and then we'll come back to library, is that okay? Do you want to have a
Necessity is the mother of invention.
What'd you do to your hand? No. My 6-year-old broke his hand a couple weeks ago. The cast is off, but I think it's still broken. It's what? The cast is off, but it still hurts. So I'm just like, buying time because my fear is that when we go back, they're gonna put another cast on it, and it's just gonna be like really crushing to him because he just started swimming.
Okay, so, yeah, outside.
Yeah. Okey doke. Welcome back. Dr. Wedmore, Thatcher Island. Shoot.
I can't really see this, so I don't know if it's changed any from last year or not.
No, nothing was submitted.
Okay. For the last 4 or 5 years, the Thatcher Island Committee has had a budget of about $19,000. And the cost of running the boat out there for the last 4 or 5 years is about $18,500. So the budget itself has a shortfall, and that has been backfilled by the Thatcher Island Association, giving $3,500 a year for the gift fund and working it out that way. Now, there's a couple of things that's a little bit different about the Autonomous Republic of Thatcher Island in that we generate a certain income that goes to the town general fund. And last year, with the increase in fees for the non-Rockport residents on the boat, we turned over $7,947 to the town. I think the year before it was about $6,700. So although the allotment has been about $19,000, the net runs about $12,000, and that's roughly the same as what it has been back in 2000 whatever. We're willing to live with that, but what I would like to have for your consideration is that since last year the revenue went up by about $1,200 because of the increased fees, and presumably this year will be the same. And also because we are putting on another run on Wednesday, which should generate about another $800. That will be about $2,000 more to the general fund, still against that $19,000 allotment, and still leaving the Thatcher Island Association to backfill. So no matter how efficient we are in running the service or how much increased freight we carry, it doesn't do the Thatcher Island Association directly good because our budget is set and whatever revenues are there goes to the general fund. So I'd like to have you consider another $2,000 for next year, and I think that will be easily matched with the activities that we will be doing and have done last year with the increased fees.
Are you requesting it for boat driver wages, purchase of services, gas?
The biggest expense actually is the boat driver wages, and wages is one of those things that can't be slushed around.
So do you want all the 2,000 attributed to the wages?
Yes, that would be best, because that's really the thing that, the category that has to be backfilled at the end of the year.
Seems reasonable. Anything else?
That's it.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Library? And then, has anybody else joined us besides school and DPW? No? Okay. Welcome.
Thank you
I
very
love
much.
that you always wear your name tag.
Oh, yeah. Always.
I do.
Sometimes when I'm not even working.
When you wear your name tag and come, I feel like I probably still have like a library book from when I was like 10 years old.
Yeah, we let you know, don't worry.
Okay, do you want to go over what you guys are requesting this year?
Sure. This year, our focus is to kind of true up some of the numbers for our labor accounts. So we're not, even though some of the accounts go up and some go down, we're just making adjustments based off of where those expenditures have been since I've been at the director of the library. And taking into account the union increases that were agreed upon. I did not put in for, and so is this the revised without the building cost, Linda? I'm seeing some of that taken out, but.
Yours is what you originally requested. Mine, I took it out.
Okay, great.
So you could see both.
Okay, good. Thank you very much for doing that. So I'll touch base on that. But we weren't asking for any additional funding for our electricity or fuel, phone. We don't have a phone cost, office supplies. We were keeping that all the same. Our materials budget always has to be 19% of our overall budget for state compliance. And our contract services, those are the actual numbers that I was able to receive for the contracts. So for the elevator maintenance, heating and radiator maintenance, those are the actual numbers, aside from the computer equipment and maintenance, which is the Balsam contract, which is underfunded, but we were going to leave that this year. Our computer network, actually that's MVLC contract. Instead of a B, there is an MBLC, but this one is actually an MVLC. In the past, I've always taken into account a small libraries and network grant that we get through the state. But with our current economic conditions, that funding can't be counted upon. So I'm asking for the full amount for our consortium fees. Hopefully, we'll still get the small libraries and network grant, and we can leave that money there. But I'd rather know that we can interlibrary loan books and keep our consortium allegiance. So. Linda and Mitch and I, when we were talking about the budget, Linda was asking if there was any way to reduce our MAR, which is the municipal appropriations requirement that the state mandates. And there is one thing that the state will allow, and that is the removal of building costs. So I did, and they will recalculate the MAR based off of that.
Oh, interesting.
So it's the only thing that they will let you take out and adjust for.
What were your building costs?
So what we did is I did reevaluate our labor costs if we were to take out the custodial fees. We have a full-time custodian that works 20 hours a week and a part-time custodian that works 4 hours a week. So I readjusted those two line items for that. The clothing allowance, which is part of the union contract for the custodian, would be removed. Electricity and fuel could be removed. And when I say removed, I mean given over to Joe here at the DPW. Removed from our budget and put into his. The custodial supplies, and then our elevator and heating radiator contracts. And I verified that these could be removed from the state. I went over the budget with the state aid specialist with the state to verify that this could be done. And she helped the two of us together recalculated what the new minimum appropriation requirement would be based off of that. So it does reduce the overall budget of the library, which would, down the road, reduce the cost of, because every year the budget has to go up by a certain percentage, and since it's percentage based, it would lower that increase over the years.
Right, so that's where we see that savings, right?
You will also see a savings. In addition to that, you will see a reduce in the 19%. So there'll be an overall cost savings down the road, and then there would be a cut in the 19% if we were to do that. Now, of course, as a library, I never want to see us, losing funding or seeing, materials cut, because we typically, end up dipping into gift accounts. Sometimes people leave or, give money to the library specifically for materials, but we never have a problem spending our materials budget, because with books and ebooks and audiobooks and, you know, what people are looking for now coming in so many different formats, you know, things are changing. And just at the trustees meeting earlier today, we made the monumental decision, your first year, to do away with our VHS collection. So we have, I know, our VHS collection. So
Are
we
you converting
circulate all types of materials. What?
Are you converting it or just?
We're making sure that we have them in DVD format, but most of them, yeah, we do. Yeah.
Drop them off at your house, Don.
No, I'm good, thanks. I'm good.
Yeah, what did you do with all,
At-
what do you do
at-
with all of them?
at-
Selling them?
We give them to the friends who then can sell them, and then they use that to support programming and special requests for the library, but mostly for programming and museum passes.
Got it. Cool.
Yeah.
So the savings is $50,000 off the bottom line, is that right? Am I reading that
Well,
right?
no, it's,
No.
the actual savings is about 15,000,
Oh.
right?
Yes.
Because
Okay.
the rest of that went to DPW.
Yeah.
Put it in DP.
But where
Yeah.
it changed, whereas, right,
I just,
the 19% would have been 77.8, correct me if I'm wrong, plus the 30.
30,
But
okay.
because we pulled those other,
I see.
it's that.
It
Yeah.
just seems like a shame for $15,000 to cut the materials budget. I mean, I'm with you.
The thing is, it slows down our
understand.
increases.
Yeah, no, I understand, but I don't know, I'd rather see
Right,
the money
so-
go toward that.
Right, so is there a way to get, to save on the 19%, right? But then put the materials money back in there?
Well, the
know what I'm
19% is the minimum that the state will allow
More.
us. Yes. So you could still,
Well,
and now we're really, now I'm loving this conversation. So what you could do, you're really making me happy.
Good thing there's some space.
What you could do is we could move the building costs to the DPW with Joe's blessing.
No, he doesn't
And
get a choice.
I'm not
It's in
looking
there.
behind me. And but leave the 19% as it is, and you would still over time see a savings
Right.
because that percentage would go down. So every year when the MAR increases, it wouldn't increase as much.
Right.
So you could get a savings that way and still support the materials expenditures
Right.
that we have,
Right.
which would be very nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
So will you folks
So-
remember what you want, or should I put something in your columns right now about what you want?
Something.
I mean, you could even, you could just put it under SW.
I think
just so that
you're
you're
saying
not-
you're not intending on reducing the spending on
So you
library
keep
materials.
that
We
77.
can't.
Right.
It'll always be
Right.
19%,
Yes.
and we always
No,
spend
but
more
you-
than that.
you
I get it. I
spend
didn't
from
totally
the
understand at first.
Gift account.
Keep it the same, but
We
take
do.
15%.
And above and beyond, because
Yeah.
The reduction.
even the
Take the
19%
reduction,
But
doesn't
don't,
meet
still
the
but don't
demand
reflect it, just
and the
throw it
cost.
aside.
requires 19% to be from the municipal appropriations.
Yeah.
Right.
They can go above and beyond that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And with demand, you know, with the bestsellers and the different formats now.
Moving it around, literally. Okay, so see what we've done, for now?
Great.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
What's the bottom line on the budget now, Linda?
Gets,
On which,
On
the
the
library?
Yeah.
It will be this bottom line. No,
No, that's not.
it will be,
About 50,000 difference,
it will
25
be
in,
this
fuel, light and power, about
plus-
7 in other expenses, and, 10 or something in, supplies so far, and materials.
that way. So it's just materials you want to keep in there, right? So, so this,
well, why don't you just adjust your
Minus
your,
this.
I think if you just
minus
adjust your
this,
column.
Minus this, but I don't wanna change my recommendation right now. So it's 46, 139 plus,
There's something wrong.
No, that's not right.
There's something, I think the labor, is incorrect up above as well. Couldn't reconcile that.
Well, you had a lower figure for the part-time wages than requested.
well, that was the custodian, was it not?
Yeah, so the
Okay,
permanent part-time,
so that's a,
the administrative assistant and the permanent part-time should total 186,671.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
I think maybe the total, under direct labor total, I think maybe it doesn't include the library director's salary, possibly?
Okay,
Yeah.
204, no, it does.
no,
No, it doesn't,
No,
Add up.
it doesn't
No.
include something, because
doesn't add up.
147 and 51 is 200,000 all by itself, so.
Okay, so 2404, 2411, 2427. Okay, so 19 isn't in there.
Yikes. Not the one we wanted to be missing.
Okay.
That seems more.
It's making a sum be easier.
So 19, 27, 35, 43, 44, that's it.
That's
the
about
rest of
right.
them.
Yeah.
Copy that to your column too.
I will.
Okay.
Thank you, Rob.
how did you get 372 there? That's not right. No,
What are you looking at, June?
well, I was just,
That's,
but look at what it was in the past.
Yeah,
You-
maybe that is also.
That's
those are all
probably,
wrong, too.
Ours,
oh, okay.
on
you're
my
right, you're
computer,
right. The
I
higher
get,
number
I
is
get
the correct
398, 696.
We'll fix it.
number. All right.
Well, we're not gonna use this spreadsheet.
Minus some, so
We're
it's,
not gonna use this. This is 4 years old.
well, we can fix it later. I don't, we don't
Alright.
need to.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
247,102 in Linda's column agrees with what I have.
Okay,
But now take a look at the bottom line of the budget. to
okay,
see
so
what
it's something
it is.
like that. We can work it out later,
Because the
just to
actual
keep
budget
moving.
should be like 495,000.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Okay,
Excellent.
anything else, Cindy? Okay, great, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, DPW? DPW.
Yeah, that's the right number.
I know it.
Joe, do you kinda like it that everyone's dumping numbers into your?
This is one way to grow your budget, I guess, huh?
Okey doke. Go right ahead.
Okay, there's, in the general fund, there's a few minor adjustments in the, I guess, 401 salaries, just to bring them back to FY18 salary base. So there's some small adjustments if you're looking at,
So, hold on, so how does, so, I don't get, I'm confused already, sorry. So, what do you mean, just to bring them back?
so there were some increases in salaries that weren't reflected in the FY18 budget.
Really?
I think they were funded within the budget. They weren't so there wasn't additional money transferred into the budget.
The transfer didn't show up in soft right, that's why it looked different when you keyed it in.
Oh, but my numbers are right with the adjustments, are they not?
I don't know, I have to go back and audit some of these.
I think Linda made the adjustments.
Oh, well, probably not, because I use the
So I've
soft
been
right
looking at
numbers.
Linda's column or something. I don't know.
We're aware, Joe, that.
Okay, I mean,
everybody
just
is-
a
yeah.
small point, it's
Yep.
it's a minor thing.
Yeah.
But in general, looking at the next, everything else is level funded until you get to the fuel, light, and power. So there are a number of accounts there where we felt we had, based on actual history of expenditures, more money than we needed and less money than we needed, so I made some adjustments to really reflect that. We were looking at 2-year averages to try to sort of hone in on what we thought really was a good number. And so just reflecting those averages, we've made the adjustments in the general fund, fuel, light, and power to reflect that. And then the net result was we needed, another $16,685 for that.
Except that I added library here.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at a different sheet. I haven't
I added the electric.
to account the library adjustments that you transferred into the budget.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So that's just a spreadsheet problem, not an actual problem.
Correct, we're gonna
Okay.
go through for all departments. for
Perfect.
9 years.
I think we went through this last year too. Okay. All right, keep going.
Okay. So the next increases, well, there's a small increase for graffiti removal. That was something that we had been doing, I think it's been a couple of years now, Linda, right?
Yeah.
And then, but for some reason, it just dropped out of the budget last year and just put it back in there.
Mary wouldn't be happy.
No.
She's not here, but she would not be happy to see that gone.
Yeah.
Mary Devaney.
No, I don't think the
That's
intent
the
was to
wr- that-
cut
I
it.
know, I'm kidding,
Something
I'm
happened,
kidding.
I just put it.
I love like what
Yeah.
a warrior she is about it.
We've got the wrong number in here. What did you ask for graffiti?
2,000.
Oh, okay, we got an extra. Whoa, now we've got lots of more.
Notice that one.
Bingo, more library material.
Okay, that's nice.
But we only spent 600.
The harbor masters aren't here to arm wrestle you for more float repair.
Oh, and this number went up because of what I added in for the library custodian stuff.
Okay. Okay. Other stuff,
Okay.
Joe? Go ahead.
So then, the last increases in the budget are in the solid waste department.
Wait a minute, under parks, we suddenly have water utility charges for 50,000.
I wonder if there's an extra zero in that one.
Come from?
I mean, that's kind of crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Let's say,
What do you think you asked for, Joe?
I'm looking at
Oh.
that now, so let's see, parks.
Mm-hmm.
5,000.
Oh, goody.
More
Love
money.
those decimal points.
Sorry about that.
I guess we didn't totally copy our agenda. Oops. Oh, well, we're getting through it. It's not bad.
All right, so, as I said, so the next increase is in the solid waste division. And so took us a look at our actual costs that we're experiencing. There's been some service adjustments that we've done in the past couple of years. That's been well received, but there came at bit more of a cost as well. And so those costs have been, I guess, creeping into our budget. We've been looking at the history of those costs. So reflecting out what we believe is a true expenditure for the services we're providing in the transfer station, we're budgeting the amounts that you see there and the increases that you see there. On the flip side of things, though, looking at the revenues, because, you know, with the services we're providing and the costs that we know we're incurring, we're also looking at the fees associated with sticker charges and our bag charges for the pay-as-you-throw system. And our revenue projections, or my revenue projections, are going to be covering the increases that we have. There are some costs that the general fund should incur above and beyond, you know, what we collect in fees at the transfer station, because we do collect trash from all barrels throughout town, and that's not a user fee. That's a cost to the town in general. So we recognize that every time we go through our estimates of revenues and our expenses, try to, you know, balance that and have a little less revenues than we have expenses for the department because of that. But nonetheless, we believe that we're going to bring revenues in that's going to offset the cost increases that we have here.
I'm not totally getting it. Is
I
any
was just
other
gonna
people?
ask too. I didn't.
Well,
Well, I'm not getting it with the pay as you, I'm not, is the plan to still offer the full pay stickers? Because I'm just not seeing how.
Well, basically, the revenues that I'm projecting are based on the same plan we have right now. Whether it changes or not, the adjustments will have to come in the fees. Commissioners have not set fees that will, you know, the fees that they have now will impact, you know, current year sales, and may carry into next year yet. We don't know.
Yeah, this is just such a huge jump. I'm just. I don't
But
know.
basically, you got to look at the revenues,
Right, right.
and you don't see that up there.
But you're saying, Joe, that you're anticipating $40,000 more in revenue?
We're going to be raising enough revenue to cover the expenses.
But by raising fees or by the
Just
current
based on the fees that are already there. We're not saying that we're gonna have to raise sticker fees or do anything.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
they may make adjustments that, you know, still could do some of
Right,
that,
so-
but they're still gonna target a
Yeah.
certain number.
So are our revenues this year are our current revenues way higher already? It's just 40,000's a lot right, without raising sticker fees?
Are
I don't know,
are you
unless I'm
asking about?
missing
Sticker fee,
something.
there just wasn't raised.
Right, right.
So
Because-
could you repeat the question?
Go ahead.
Well, I'm saying, are you seeing now that we've moved to pay-as-you-throw for some people, a huge increase in revenues this year?
I see that we have about a 57-43, if I'm not mistaken, split. That most people are pay-as-you-throw, but there's still a good amount that are flat fee. They are paying, I think that was a $250 sticker fee. You know, so it's, you know, there's some, if you do the math, there's some cost, there's some revenue based on that program that's easily calculated. Then there's a, you know, sticker fee for the pay-as-you-throw, but that's a lesser cost, 55, I believe. But the other cost comes in the purchase of the bags. That's how the program
Right,
works.
so that's what we're asking, is have you seen a big increase in
We
revenue?
have. We've seen increases in bag revenues coming in because of more users. Increases in, you know, the flat fee because of the higher prices per sticker.
But
we've
way
se-
less people bought the stickers.
We
Right,
see
I would assume.
more fees coming in on the bulk items because of adjustments in those line items as well. So overall, when I look at all the quantities that we've sort of sold in bags and stickers and the fees we've collected in the bulk items and apply the rates, I'm getting revenues that satisfies the budget increases as well. Yeah. I'd be happy to share those revenues with FinCom and.
Well, actually, you should have told me about them in the revenues, you know?
I believe, I don't know what, I don't know exactly if I sent you a spreadsheet, but I did have a spreadsheet that had some
No. you didn't.
projections?
Because if I look at the revenues, from no, it's up here, solid waste, there's a whole. There it is. Oop, trash services. Between 17 and 18, you know, the 19 is just about what we actually received in 17. So
You level funded 17? What did you get for 17?
17, well, we projected 345 and we got 348,707.
That's just flat fee.
Oh, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
there's the big jump. Yep, there you go.
Okay, here it is.
It's the
So it's
big.
19,000 in the bag revenue.
And then there's a jump
18,000.
here in the coupons.
Yeah, okay.
But
So
what
it wasn't about
happened?
90,000.
No, we did pick that up,
But has it,
but we didn't pick it up in 19.
but, so you're, and I honestly, I could be confused. So you're saying that because you see the increase in revenues, right? They're looking at next year, there's gonna be a higher cost. So you're increasing the expense side as well, the 30,
No, I'm looking at my actual operating costs.
yeah.
And knowing what I need to do to meet compliance, to dispose of the projected tonnage of solid waste and recycling.
Right.
All of the things we do.
Yeah.
And the costs that I know are there
Yeah.
for the vendors and all. And I'm coming up with my expenses.
The 82,000, the purchase of services number.
Oh, the whole
Right,
budget.
right,
The whole budget.
right.
So I've created a budget that reflects what I believe is charges that we'll see in a normal year.
Okay, I need to see what you've projected for revenues,
that's
especially on those three.
I can run down real quick if you have the line items there, if you want to plug it in somewhere.
Sure, pay-as-you-throw stickers.
So pay-as-you-throw stickers, 98,100.
I'm not gonna change these right now because they're on the recap, so I have to go back and get those, okay.
How about
Pay-as-you-
bags?
Oh,
Pay-as-you-throw bags, 75,000.
Wow.
huh. And, transfer station coupons?
65,000.
Wow. What are you thinking for a flat fee?
327,000.
And,
Bottles and cans, 2,000, and that's about it.
nothing for recycling paper?
No, the market's dead.
Really?
Does it get recycled?
It does, it
Does it
just
even get
offsets
recycled?
costs. It doesn't, there's not a revenue stream anymore.
So you're anticipating
So,
131,000 increase? This?
so back to
No,
my
what-
question, so have our FY 18 expenses been way
Versus
higher than you
525.
That's what he's
expected?
saying, yeah.
Yeah, it really needs to
18,
be compared
current
to the
year.
520.
So how are you affording this current year?
Transferring from other places that may have some availability.
But it also looks like, Joe, you're not spending the entire projected increase, right? You're not allocating that entire projected increase to expenses.
Well, the solid waste department does not include the full cost,
Okay,
because there's the cost of DPW administration,
okay,
benefits.
right, all the corollary.
Right, so right now, I'm showing a budget of about 515,000 with revenues of 567,000, but the 515 doesn't have benefits costs, like
Right,
you say,
right.
Bill, and other things that are in
Yep.
other parts of the DPW budget.
All right. Oh, that's a big jump in 1 year.
But you're saying that's what it's costing now? The 82.5 is what it costs now?
I'm saying that I'm looking back at true expenditures in FY '18 and projecting those numbers out to FY '19, correct?
64.
Yeah.
FY '18, I don't have the final expense reports for '18.
Yeah. So there's, there's some costs that I can, point to, definitely say, yeah, there's been some adjustments in
Yeah, that's
those
what I'm,
costs.
because my kind of bigger picture concern is if we have a department that can have, what is it, $40-something thousand worth of expenses and be like, okay, we'll just move around some money, then I feel like we're probably doing something wrong somewhere. Because I feel like other departments were literally like pinching, you know, and like moving like to the dollar. So I'm just a little bit nervous, like where the money's coming from. I mean, I know you have a little bit of play with the enterprise funds.
Well,
but
they do not
you
pay
can't
for
move
any of this,
anything
no,
from there,
no,
right?
not at all, no. And, not all of the full costs are hitting, this year. The recycling is an example where the costs have definitely increased. They only increased, since, I think it was like December, the change. So, you're projecting out for some costs that, aren't fully realized yet in FY '18, but will be fully realized in the whole year for FY '19. In other words, we're gonna have some problems this year end for sure. I don't know how it's gonna end up, but
Yeah.
I mean, if I can't find it from other locations, then I'll go to FinCom for a transfer.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Wow. Other questions on this, FinCom?
Yes.
Anybody?
Does this preserve the 10% that the town is kicking in towards the total expense? These calculations?
That's our intent, yes.
Okay. And then did you have any other increases besides that?
No, that was it in the general fund.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, they look pretty good.
Yeah, great. Okay, wanna move on?
Do you wanna hit up water and sewer?
Sure.
All right.
So CIPC never saw the adjusted request, right? Because we never got to that. You're running a deficit in water.
Yeah, that's what I handed you, that you
Yeah.
just handed me, that I haven't looked at because I gave you mine, so.
Right here.
So that's how he's gonna pay the,
But I don't understand it. It was just one copy.
okay,
Do you have that electronically?
no, because he just handed it to me
Okay.
before this meeting, but we're mixing up a couple things here. We're talking about he's gonna tell us what he needs to expend for the transfer stations and operations, not how to pay for the capital.
Oh, okay.
And the deficit, right? What are you gonna walk through yet next?
I'm gonna walk through the budget, not the capital.
Okay. So, water,
The deputy director got a nice increase.
Yeah, I see some issues.
Oh,
Yeah.
what happened?
I don't think you've filled in your column either, Linda, right? So there's some work to be done just to bring that spreadsheet up to what my request is. But I can give you an overview and do it real quickly because I don't think there's really anything very significant here in the water and the sewer. Except if you were to look at the spreadsheet, there would be some things that are missing that are significant. So so basically the same thing in the 401, there's some adjustments just to adjust for the base of the 401 salaries. But other than that, everything's level funded. There is a missing line if you look for the full-time employees of the water department, you'll find that I couldn't find them in that spreadsheet. It should be account 60-402,
I've got-
5150.
I have to find the account numbers.
What's the
You don't
title?
ha- You
Is
don't
that the
have it on
seasonal
the
labor?
line.
Water permanent full-time, I mean, that's the major
Water.
salaries of the department employees.
Yes.
So what's the account number now? 6401?
60-402,
402?
5150, 5115.
Okay, it's not here, I guess.
Yeah, you're missing.
Okay,
you've-
so,
You've hidden there's a gap of 12.
so I've
between
hidden more
garage.
than the insurances?
Yeah. Water, right there, 20,
There it is,
21.59.
okay. So it's here, it was just hidden. So I don't need to put that in. Okay. Oh, jeez. So now, we're showing the line. But I've got your request in here.
They don't match what I
Oh.
believe I put in there, so,
Really?
yeah.
Did you change what you put in, or this is?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Do the others match what you put in? And it's just this line?
The general fund matches up pretty well, except for what we found
No, I'm
was-
talking about the water line. I mean, none of the,
none of the 401s match up, but, let's see, and the one we saw was missing, and then there's, I think probably a typo in the expense of, public works supplies, line 2984. I think that should be $1,000 less.
you're requesting 15.
685. And that would reflect the number that I put in here.
Are the other expense numbers okay?
All the other expense numbers, well, there's a couple of things missing on the, lines, 2995 for clothing allowance, and, just the reserve allowance in general.
Okay, what do you have for,
So the, clothing allowance should be 3,869.
in the reserve?
Is 50,000.
I think that I might have gone into the, enterprises before you did your input, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, so all the labor,
So what did you have for the labor? That was a hidden line item, was that
for the labor hidden line, the water?
452, 549?
Yes.
Okay,
What is it supposed to be?
that's what it's supposed to be.
Oh,
But the 401s, we need to just tweak a little bit. I don't know if you want to do it now or later, but,
But that subtotal was incorrect. 462.
so 2959. It is there. how much is this off? Because we probably shouldn't take everybody's
Yeah,
time
we
with
can
this.
deal with
Yeah, we can deal with that later. Sure.
The same thing true with the sewer?
Yeah, so the sewer, 401s would need a little bit of adjustment, and all the expenses are fine.
How big is the difference? Because people need to know a big difference.
How big's the difference in the 401s?
Yeah.
So in the water, it's $1,855, and in the sewer, it's $1,917.
We can fix it and republish it
Yeah.
because it's not going to affect substantially. So it looks like the electricity went up a lot in both enterprises.
Should be level funded, actually. Did I miss anything?
It's level from, okay, it's level from 18. It just went up, it jumped up between 17 and 18. It's encumbered. I guess you don't have retained earnings in sewer.
Retained earnings. Reserves?
No, I have the 50,000 for
Okay.
reserve.
Yep. So, you mentioned the water enterprise deficit, and, so, Linda, we talked about that and perhaps how we could,
Yeah, so I'll bring that up. Okay, so what's your plan for the water to cover this deficit?
right, so there's, I guess, some capital projects that, are closed out, or we could close out, that, have available balances that could, be able to bring that, out of deficit. It would be something that,
Oh, it's this, I'm sorry.
We're just sharing one copy, that's all.
It's
Sure.
what you just handed me.
Okay.
So, so the 41,661 is gonna be totally, done by transfers of remaining balances?
correct, yep.
And from no balances that were borrowed?
There are sufficient, free cash balances
Okay.
that could be used to offset the $41,661.
Are you removing any of these requests?
So, we are going to remove, at this point, the vehicle request, unit number 47.
Okay.
We are going to reduce the water main request at this point from 50 to 25.
Okay.
We are going to request a loan authorization for the DAF GAC filter replacement in the amount of $125,000.
Okay.
We are going to reduce the Carlson's Quarry pump installation request from $30,000 to $26,380.64.
381.
How,
Missed a
You
digit.
found some other money?
what, say that number again?
380. 380 instead of
Instead
38.
of 38.
No,
26,381.
Right.
Guess rounded up.
so it's,
It doesn't matter,
That's what we
380.
did do.
26,000.
It'll work.
26,381.
There we go.
why is that just 380? Oh, because,
Seven.
and
So it's,
64 cents, okay. And what about these other two things?
So the water master capital do not fund.
Oh, okay, you're removing that one from your request.
Correct. So we should be in balance, 226,381, rounding, in available revenues with 226,381 in spent or project request.
Okay, I can't check that because I don't know your balances that you're transferring. in.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
okay. We'll have all this for you electronically long before, well, actually, it's almost time for their packets. It'll be in your packets. Okay. Okay.
But it reflects the sheet that you've been passed out. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we just need to see it all together, and then we'll take a look at it. And
If there's some similar changes, I guess, to the sewer enterprise fund.
Yep, what is it?
So the available free cash is fine, but looking to close out Dock Square Pump Station project and bringing in 10,255 in additional revenues. So I don't know that you have a place for that yet, but
I don't understand what you're trying to say here.
Didn't you borrow for that?
no, that's free cash.
Okay.
So what I'm saying basically,
You're gonna transfer in
we're
something.
gonna transfer in some money that will be able to fund $86,000 in projects. So the water meter module for 50,000 is fine. Since we didn't fund the water portion of the unit.
No, transfer another 11,000 to make it 86.
No.
Oh,
Ten
thank
thousand
you.
two 55.
10,255 in revenues from, or balance of Dock Square, added to 75,745 in free cash, will give us $86,000 in revenues.
Okay,
All right. So I'm going to fund 50,000 for the water meter modules, 25,000 for Old Garden Beach
Wait a minute.
pumps.
Yep, those stay the same.
That's right, that's what's in there.
oh, okay. And what?
So the vehicle in the water enterprise that wasn't funded, this is the other half of that, so
Yeah.
that would not be funded as well. The Old Garden Beach pump station will be funded at 25,000.
Which is what you asked for.
Okay. And the sewer inspection camera could be remain at 11,000, so it should total $86,000.
Okay.
Are you doing the 50,000 in water meters under the water enterprise too?
We are.
Okay. So you're looking for roughly 106,000 there?
Looking for 100,000 in water meter
Yeah, you have,
funding.
yep. Okay.
That's it. And we can go over some of the specific transfers later.
Well, we have to because they have to go in the packets
Yep.
so that selectmen can really see
Mhm.
them.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Schools, last but certainly not least. Do you guys, school committee, do you wanna join Rob up here too? No? You're happy?
I'm gonna pull Rob's,
You can make hand signals.
Must be around right here.
Yep.
so what, tell me what you want shown first, what page and,
self-explanatory.
Yeah.
I can't even show it all here.
It all does mean something.
It
and
is
I hope I can
beautiful.
get to the bottom of any questions you may have.
Note to other departments, other colors look nice.
I was just saying how much I admire the
I think the biggest part of the message is that for the fourth year in a row, we have been able to uphold the fragile agreement pact that was made between town entities and schools with regard to funding to try to create as close to a sustainability model as possible for that operation. The total budget increase of the schools this year is 2.99%. The model asked for the school budget not to increase by more than 3% per year, and that as part of that agreement, the town would make every effort to fund the base increase to the schools at 2.3%. And that was dependent on available funds and also the rather fickle nature of health insurance increase, which right now this budget is anticipating an increase in health insurance of 8%, and the model allowed no more than 5%. So what this model reflects here in this budget is a 1.6% increase in the base funding from the town. What the idea of the model was to still allow the schools to have slow but steady growth over time, to move forward educationally. The biggest driver of the school budget is salaries, human resources. It's around 80% of the total budget. We were, I think, fortunate to have the cooperation of the School Teachers Association this year, and were able to agree to ratify a new 3-year teacher contract that represents a 1.45% increase in salaries across the next 3 years. So 145, 145, and 145. And I think that's considerably below what some of the other packages around the state will be. But I believe our teachers recognize the situation of the town. They enjoy working with the kids. They enjoy the schools. They enjoy being in the town, and they were willing to, I think, take that into consideration. We did that fairly rapidly. We've spent maybe 3 meetings, getting to that, with the idea that we had to present a budget that had some sense to it. And I think they recognized that, and the model helped with that. You were able to simply, put out a number and say, that's the amount of cash that's theoretically available. And then how do you want that distributed? How do you want it funded? We have to hold back some things for school operations, but given most of our budget is salaries, we were able to afford an increase of 1.45%. The support staff that are in the contract are still at 2.1%. And that's because they're coming out of the last year of their contract for next year. The teachers had been 2, 2, and 2.1 previously, going 145, 145, 145, and the support staff mirrored that, but lagged behind 1 year. So they were 2, 2, and the last year of their contract is 2.1. So they'll negotiate next year, and there'll be a ground of, parameters related to what we're talking about here with regard to these figures. Once again, the biggest increase in the budget is in the SPED area. Those are costs that are mandatory, justified, and the proper amounts for the kids that need those services. The increase in SPED in this budget is close to 6%. It's 5.95%, and that's 68.5% of the total increase in that budget is SPED related. And that's in tuitions and transportation, so out-of-district tuitions, which are not tied to any kind of cost control measure. So we build in an 8 to 10% increase in the out-of-district tuitions, and we can have organizations that may take a child for $120,000 that petition to the state to get a 12% increase. And you have to basically swallow that if the state agrees for that with regard to their programs. Page by page, in terms of the way the budget is set up, without going into tremendous detail unless you have questions. The tab that you have up is special education. So if you look at the expense section down near the bottom, scroll down a little bit, if you go a little bit to the right on that screen, and you go down a little bit, or up a little bit, I guess, it's a proper phrase, and you have to widen it out because that's where your increases are. You have a $132,000 increase in that tuition line. You have a $55,000 increase in that next tuition line, and a $15,000 increase in transportation. So that's the big driver in the special education budget. Then the bottom line of that budget, if you scroll down, that's where that 5.95% increase in sped costs are. Off to the right of that is a little exercise that's worth at least knowing about, because several years ago you had the foresight to work with us to establish a special education reserve that could handle dramatic swings in the sped budget that were unanticipated during a school year. The present balance of that reserve is $95,140.41. And then there are several lines in the budget that play off that. We have a budget and then an anticipated amount. And if you go to the right and go down just a little bit, we'll be anticipating at town meeting that our expenses in those lines will be over what had been budgeted. And the agreement says that we can then request a transfer to our budget from that reserve, and we'll be asking for $45,000 to be transferred. And that would take the reserve down to $49,000, which is dangerously low, except the fact that we do allow our tuitions from preschool students to now flow into the reserve, which is close to $50,000. That'll bring the reserve back up to around $100,000. If we had not had to draw from it, then it could have gone to 150 and then 200. The history of what we've done with that reserve over the time that it's been set up is listed in that tan box. So year one, we added 15,000 because the reserve says if you don't spend all your budget lines, then you transfer the extra into the reserve as a rainy day fund. The second year, we had a huge draw, minus $133,000. And then last year, we transferred in approximately, I can read the number almost, $13,394. And this year, we're asking for a draw. So there's ups and downs, but it's not always a draw. It plays off tuition, transportation, evaluations, tutoring, and those sorts of things. And the goal would be to get that reserve, close to $750,000 or whatever. But it has no natural funding mechanism to it.
Quick question, what else feeds the reserve besides preschool?
Nothing feeds it at all except an over budgeted sped budget that then has the ability to transfer into that. There's no mechanism set up to fuel that.
Got it. So the 13.3 came from?
That came from our budget.
Got it, okay.
And the first year, on purpose, we tried to make sure we would transfer to the reserve. I'm not sure that was a perfectly mathematical exercise, but we really worked hard not to withdraw from the reserve in the first year.
Okay.
And then the second year, we had very high expenses that were unanticipated, and a draw was made. And then there was a deposit made. This year, we're asking for a draw. There are places that use their Medicaid reimbursement money, which are related to sped expenses, to fuel that reserve. But right now, that's a town revenue. Okay. And that's, as far as I know, they're aware that amount will stay. Mm-hmm. So that's the biggest driver in the budget is that sped page.
Yep.
If you just go to the next tab, it goes tab by tab through the budget. You're on the elementary school page. Mm-hmm. And the bottom line of that, if you go down to the percentage increase for the elementary school, a little further, and then to the right, the elementary school budget is up 1.21%. So the total elementary budget is up $32,753. Well, I think that's a reasonable increase. If you go to the next page, you're looking at the middle school. That has a little higher increase because we did add a counselor at the middle school because of the large counseling needs. So that budget in that school shows close to a 4% increase. We go to the next page.
Did you add in a full-time, like employee?
Full-time counselor.
Okay.
At the high school, bottom line increase, 1.67%. Next page is athletics. There's actually a decrease in the athletic budget of close to 5%. That's not reducing the kinds of monies that go to athletics. There will be a changeover in a retirement of the athletic director. And because of the placement on the scale, the swing in that particular funding will generate the 4.9% decrease in athletics. We go to the next page. It's operation and maintenance, and that is minus 0.25% as a bottom line. One number that I'm wary about is the one that stands out in red, 8,958. I rolled the dice and reduced 60,000 gallons of fuel oil purchase down to 245 a gallon. And right now, on December 6th, we paid 208. That's when the per barrel price was $52 a barrel. Now it's $63 a barrel.
Was it 208 yesterday when I got it?
We're going to probably lose that gamble of having reduced that line.
A question on the middle school, high school assistant principal.
Yep.
You have it under middle school and under high school.
Yep. Well, that's a really...
So is that one person or two persons?
Well, you have to have a little history. We previously had an administration that had a single individual that was a middle school, high school principal.
Right.
And their salary was split between the middle school and high school. We went to a new model this year of having no assistant principals in the buildings.
You must have gone to having two assistant principals, one in the middle and one in the high school.
We used to have a middle school, high school principal, and an assistant principal in the middle school, and an assistant principal at the high school. The model that is in place now is a middle school principal, a high school principal, and no assistant principals.
And you're adding a person you're calling a dean.
There are
which
individuals
is a
called deans who
smaller-
come from the faculty.
Somewhat smaller, so this is,
They come from the teacher's salary scale as opposed to an administrative scale. They're not a
Okay.
year-round employee. They're on a 190-day contract instead of a
right, so
260-day
you changed the
contract.
structure and had a small savings.
Right, there's actually, if
by
you
putting
take
in
all the
dean.
numbers that are used off of that, there was a savings in the model when we went to this model.
Okay, here we go.
Not a dramatic savings, but not a cost increase with that. Then, where we leave off on
You finish
Oh,
with the
athletic
point
and.
athletics and maintenance. We just lost the fuel oil battle right there. The next one is transportation. That has a 1.29% increase. And the next page. My pages got unstapled, so administration.
Yeah.
We'll take mine.
No, I think we're all right if we're on administration. It's down 0.1%, down $785. And then the last page refers to capital outlay request, which probably we're not talking about right now, I don't believe. Any specific questions with regard to lines within the budget? I did give a budget statement at the beginning.
One question. How do you put the price of oil out for bid, or how do you figure out?
We don't. We get a price at rack, whatever, and it's a price given to the town, I believe. Is the way that works, isn't it, Joe?
Contractual. Okay.
So it's lower than what you'd pay for your own house. It's,
Do you present
I
them
think they
though
use the
with
term
amount?
rack plus or something like
Okay,
that.
so they know how many gallons you need roughly, and then they give you a below market price.
That was part of the estimates that we gave them,
consumption.
But does it go out to a bunch of different companies, or
No.
is it sort of all funneled through one place?
Well, it ends up, I mean, there is a rack price that it's a standard price, and so it's rack plus, so it's like what the contractor wants to deliver it for, basically.
Yeah, okay.
And Rob, are we aligned with the DPW in terms of rates that we're using for the budget?
Fuel oil?
Yeah.
I don't know if he's using the same figure that I used
So
for
we're-
the purchase
we're
price.
using-
I'm using
245.
240 something.
Yeah. Also, you have nat gas in there, but isn't it propane? Wouldn't it be propane? You got a small amount of money for natural gas, but wouldn't it have to be propane?
Yeah,
You
that
have
natural gas would be at the greenhouse and in the chemistry labs.
But wouldn't it be a propane tank?
That would be propane.
Okay.
Yep, yep.
Anyway.
But the fuel oil for the boilers is all in that, that large sum of money.
Yeah.
And as long as the price doesn't go sky high, that number isn't gonna kill the budget in terms of its swing. We've just been gnawing away at it.
Yep.
I think a couple years ago, we were carrying a line of $3.60 a gallon, and we had a load delivered at $1.10 a gallon, and that's really not fair budgeting practices. So we've been edging back that direction, and now we're meeting all the close points in the budget. One of the other things that you'll see in the budget that's kind of new, if you go to the middle school, or actually the elementary school page, there's a new line there, and it's both in the elementary school and the middle school and the high school. It's that red line. And it's called potential lane movement. What happens is every November, our teaching staff is asked to put in a form as to whether they're gonna move in the salary scale to the right a column, because they've had more educational experiences, and that generates more money. We never know exactly where that number will fall, because a teacher is asked by the association, rightly so, to put in a form, even if you intend to move but might not move, you should still put the form in. Because if you don't, you've missed the deadline, and if you have enough to move, you gotta wait a whole nother year to move. So they put the forms in. We had $72,000 worth of potential lane movement forms submitted. This budget carries 32,000. So that's another roll of the dice, it's another gamble, but it's based on past history of who actually moved versus who put in a request to move. Last year it was $28,000 of actual movement. So I've cut really close to the bargain on that. And if for some reason 3/4 of them do move, I'll be $40,000 off of that calculation. It used to be, you have to put it in your budget because they put the form in, you gotta carry the line. And then you had a fund, in a sense, that you had if salaries needed to change in a hire or whatever. We've lost all the flexibility in that budget because we've gone as close to the bone as we can on the reality of where those numbers should be. I think the other one to look at is on the summary page. This is why sort of all the colors happen, I think, in the end.
How's your toner budget?
This is harder
That's a
to
good
make
question.
bigger.
I don't print it out. It doesn't cost you any toner if you just do it on your computer. But
Can you
off
pick
to
a
the right
section?
there,
Okay.
Linda, is a Ghost of Christmas future predicting model that says if things continued the way they were and you could keep your school budget less than 3%, and the town could continue to increase your base by 2.3%, when would you run out of reserves and need to either do something drastically different in the terms of the way you operate or ask for an override? And what this model ends up saying, and it's actually a large calculator where you plug in figures, and it would say that we could survive next year not having the need for an override. But the year after that, when we're sitting at this table next year, we'll be talking about an override that would be necessary to keep this model going and keep the schools going the way they are. And that would be a rather substantial override. because part of the way this model was set up is when you get to the point you need an override, ask for enough money that will give you some sustainability for 5 years or so, so you're not coming back for the voters and asking for more money. So this suggests that at this time next year, we could be talking about close to $1 million override request to give the school budget legs for another 5 years.
When was
Based
the
on-
last override?
What's that?
When was the last override?
The last override was 10 years ago. I've been here 6, and it was 2 or 3 years before my time, and we're talking about it
That
being
long ago, me
for the
either.
year after next, so that's a 10-year period of time.
I can't believe it was
So the
that
model
long.
has helped us,
Yeah,
but it really hasn't solved our problems.
right.
And I know there's a lot of discussion about talking together and looking at efficiencies and the ways we do business, but,
Which I think that's what we knew. I mean, I don't think anyone thought that it would solve our problem. Do you know what I mean? I think we're lucky that it's gotten us as far as it has. I don't know.
I think the model's really helped us.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a lot of issues with regard to school. We have 244 students in the school out of 916 who come through the choice program. And there's discussion about how that works and what are the cost, you know, benefits or not of that. That'll be discovered when we begin to talk about efficiencies and models and that kind of thing. But I came here 6 years ago, there was 150 choice kids. You're talking about 100 more kids at around $5,000 a kid that have come in the last 6 years that have allowed our enrollment to remain close to stable. Generally, it's dropping off. Last year's opening enrollment, 936. Today's enrollment rate now, 916. And you predict that out, that doesn't get to be a prettier picture the further you carry out the line. So we certainly have some tough discussions and some research to do, but the budget is allowing us to offer a wide, broad, healthy program with lots of activities, a tremendous music program, tremendous art program, and I think it's offering a product that the town should be really proud of. And I think we recognize that people have reached down hard and deep in their pockets to keep a really small school system going, which to me, maybe I'm saying this selfishly, is a really important product that benefits the town. So,
Well said.
if there are any specific questions on the lines, I'd be glad to handle those.
What's the picture of the house?
It's his house.
That's your house?
The reason I put that house in there is when I first came, we were talking an override then. And what we were looking for was the median priced home, as mine just happened to be. And if you asked for an override, what would that cost that taxpayer for that house above what they're paying if the override went through? So there's a little calculator that sits there, and if you plug in $1 million, it would say to me, who happens to own that house, that I would have to ante up around $300 more on my tax bill to fund the schools,
It was really helpful.
along with whatever else may happen, garages, you know, town operations.
I remember being like, I
there's
didn't know
more
that
than
was
just the
Rob's
schools
house.
involved.
Seawalls and things.
Yeah.
But it was a way you could show a person, so what does it mean to me as a taxpayer to keep those schools going? For me, the
That's what
median
everyone wants to know.
homeowner,
Yeah.
the median property owner, it meant around $300.
Yeah.
And then 5 years later, it would say, no, you need another $400 or whatever.
Yeah, very helpful.
I think when the bargain was initially conceived, the idea was that you'd be coming for an override a lot sooner than has actually happened.
We've been able to hold off, I'd say, 2 years off of that, and a lot of it has been through the revenue coming through school
That's what I
choice.
thought.
That's
Okay.
allowed us to hold off on that. But it just, I mean, you can't
Can't
keep a
keep- yeah.
3% and a 2.3 or less, and if insurance is there, it's even less than that. It's not a sustainable model. The lines come together and they say, you have to do something at that point. And I think that's generating a lot of discussions about, well, that's coming up, and we probably should look at all the kinds of things that are out there that would help us solve that problem.
Toby, 1 minute. Colleen?
So I'm gonna agree with Rob that the revenue stream from school choice has helped, but also the agreement with the town has helped, and particularly the way Rob has presented it, in this very clear spreadsheet. So when we work with the RTA, they really see what the bottom line is, and, I give a lot of credit to the teachers for not coming to us with a big ask, because they recognize, because of the agreement and the spreadsheets, that, you know, there really was a lot of money there for them to ask for. I'd like to thank Mitch as well for helping during negotiations.
Traditional bargaining often starts with a, I want this, and we're willing to give that, we have nothing, we want this, and then slowly you come together. There was a request was something was along the line of a reasonable cost of living increase. No percents, no whatevers, because they understood the lay of the ground from having seen the actual budget. They know the reserves, they know how much money comes in school choice, and
I give a lot of credit to Rob for that.
Yeah. Very different from when I was, from years ago. So thank you, Rob.
It's refreshing.
Toby, question?
Yes, I believe that the sped expenses were 34% of the total school budget
Yep.
last year. What is the percentage now?
percentage for next year, Toby, is
And obviously, this is an estimate.
$35.46%.
Sped expenses, as we all know, can change at any moment, right?
And
With a placement or transportation or.
one other question, I realize that the reimbursement for the state on the sped expenses is a year out, so hard to calculate, but are they paying up for their formula?
I'd argue that's very timely, Toby, because right now, they're supposed to fund at 75%, and the number they're giving us for reimbursement for sped this year is 65%, and that translates to us to a drop of about $65,000 in potential reimbursement money for out-of-district special ed costs in this school year.
Thank you.
Thanks. Other questions, comments in the school, Rob? This is so helpful how you lay it out with the different, very. Yeah.
We appreciate your continued support, and
No, we appreciate you.
we understand it's a complicated situation.
Yeah.
Only way we're gonna solve it is working together and trying to come up with a way to keep a really good product viable.
Agreed. Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Colleen and Nicole. Also, I know that the school committee worked hard on this as well. Okay,
Oh, the North Shore VOTEC on your spreadsheet, the North Shore and Essex Aggie.
so can I ask a question about that too? The Voc Tech? So that's the new facility, right? The beautiful new school?
Essex Tech.
Essex Tech. The new beautiful one, Essex
Yeah.
Tech.
Yep.
So is it true that kids get turned away?
Oh, yeah.
There's a waiting list.
Right, so how is that decided? Because I know it's obviously costs us a lot, you know what I mean? Is it equal the number of kids that get in, or is there a scale for the communities?
I don't know if they have a formula in
Nope,
slots, you
you're
have
back
to
up.
apply,
There
you
you
get
go.
interviewed, and we
Yeah,
had,
what are those
last year,
minuses?
20-some kids apply, and I think we got 7 students in.
My son's one of them.
And those were kids that really should have been in that vocational program because of the hands-on nature and the aspect of what they
Yeah.
were looking for their futures.
Well, I've
We're
heard
not
all
able to get
great
into
things
the
about
votes
it,
for
but then I hear that a lot of kids get turned away, so I'm just wondering the
It's
cost.
very competitive.
Yeah.
It's extremely competitive.
I think they are looking at a certain percentage depending on the size of your school, certain number of slots depending on the size of
Okay.
your school, because I know they have a lot more slots than us.
Okay, interesting. Okay, thanks.
Number of blacks.
Yeah.
Screen
See block up there?
Yeah, it's that nice. And
Well,
that's
it
really
just,
the
it
trend.
kind of
in schools.
stuck
The
out
budget
that
for the
they-
last section, that's, I'll get into that later, is preparing.
Not
Well,
for
under
my-
Essex, it looks
Yeah,
like
and
weird
then
numbers. and
Sister-in-law's in DC, you choose
It's hard to
science,
compare the
arts.
totals if you have stuff like that in it.
Right, you kind of just choose between. Yeah.
So
Okay.
Karen
Lori didn't show up for the,
No, she was really not feeling good. She must have stayed.
That's okay. We can always, she can,
can she come to the next selectmen's meeting to
I'll ask her tomorrow.
did she asking for,
let's see, the debt, I'll just do the bottom line of the debt.
she could always send us a memo.
About
if she's sick.
$100,000 here in the debt. But this went down, so, no, she's $50,000 difference between this year and last is not bad. The health insurance, she hasn't heard yet. I mean, the timing is off for, I'm going in the wrong direction.
Okay. Are there other, have we at this point hit all the operating that we're aiming to hit?
Did you wanna talk about benefits and debt?
Sure. Do you, yes.
Who would?
I know, right? I mean, really? Gee, it's only 9.
I know, it's almost 9 o'clock, but,
Oh my gosh.
The thing is, Carrie's not here.
Yeah,
to
Carrie's
talk
not
to
here.
her.
Carrie Arno's not here, so that may be,
So we'll talk. about it.
then you
I think we'll get it
assume,
for Tuesday.
you can assume the finance committee will go over it with a finding code and look at the debt. Oh, anything about the benefits that we ought to know?
well, I think we need Carrie for that,
I don't
so.
think she has the renewal yet, is what it
Yeah.
sounds
No,
like.
Yeah.
she doesn't.
So I think we'll get it as soon as she gets it, and we'll probably all get it at the same time. Does that make sense? Okay,
And it might be after we transfer the budget to you.
okay,
It typically is, yes.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, she's usually just guessing at this point, I feel like, isn't she?
Yep.
Kind of.
Yep, but she guesses high.
She gets like a little, okay. Okay, so then should we move on to capital?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Denise,
Am I on?
you're on.
Oh, that's a surprise. I had no idea I was gonna be on.
This is your big
It's the
moment.
same thing we talked about last time, really.
Yeah, just looking at it.
Is our
Um,
recommended stuff.
Yeah, so I think we'll just focus on recommended, right?
Well, yeah, you know what would be helpful? It always is easier to swallow what's recommended if you tell us the amount of total requests that you got. If you know it, if you have any idea what
yeah,
the
it's
total
right
was.
here.
It was 1.6 million?
1.8 million.
1.8 million.
Okay, great.
Not too far.
Okay.
And you're only recommending 680.
There you go.
Yeah,
See
what I mean?
Already it's a
It's
bargain.
like, whoa, whoa.
Well,
Half of that.
So
what
like
are we
when you go to
looking at?
Target.
Yeah, look at what I saved.
So that's the total, this is general fund total
Right,
requested.
right. So there you go. 1.8 million, and we're
Here's one.
recommending 681,000.
Here you go.
There you go, sounds better already.
Yeah. So do you want to go to the top and we'll just go through what we're recommending specifically?
That'd be great.
Okay. So, IS&T requested 152,000 for the computer replacement program, which I understand in the past was, and June, maybe you can help us with this. Sorry, June. My understanding, I think from a comment you made at the last selectmen's meeting, was that one of the reasons that you recommended that we fund 5 years at a time for IS&T.
No, I wasn't recommending any time, I was trying to explain the way we'd done it the
That's
last
what I'm
10
saying.
years. That we actually approved 600,000 in borrowing, which was 120 a year.
Right.
But we never long-term borrowed any of it, because we don't want to go into long-term debt on something as likely to become obsolete as soon as you plug the damn
Understood.
thing in as a computer. So, what we did was built into the budget $120,000 a year in free cash use, and so you've got to have that in the operating budget. We can't just say that we can fund $120,000 by borrowing. We can't borrow our way into a hole that way with it.
Understood.
We can borrow it,
Yeah.
and we don't have to spend it all the year. We'll have a capital project for
Right.
however amount you want. But we have to roll over and pay 1 year's worth
Yeah.
out of the operating budget every year so that we don't incur huge amounts
Right.
of interest.
Okay, understood.
But this one, is just a one-year borrowing.
It's just a one-year borrowing, because we didn't have
Which
that
we'll pay
rationale.
back in fiscal 19, not in fiscal 20. We spend it in fiscal 19. We're not gonna give ourselves a free year and
Right.
pretend that any computers we buy are free. We can't do that. We have to pay for the 120,000 in
Right.
computers in fiscal 19.
Understood.
In that
So
case, then
Got to
the-
be, so it's either coming
why
from
borrow
free
it and
cash
pay it?
or it's, you know, it's got to come from somewhere. It's
Yeah.
got to be in
So-
the
so-
operating budget somewhere.
if we're gonna continue that, we can't,
Well, then
Put
the
'em-
rest of the budget is sunk, so I think if we had understood that at the beginning of the process, it would have been helpful, but we didn't. So I think we either have to borrow double the budget, so that, right, 240, so that we can pay for this year.
You still have to pay some, we can't just shove off a whole year's worth of computer purchases to some future year. That's the way to get into trouble. We just can't do it. And I don't think the rest of the finance committee will go along with it either.
Right,
We
so-
have to pay
Right.
for each year for, I mean, you can say we're gonna buy 180,000 over 2 years, and we're gonna pay back 90,000 next year. You can come up with any number you want, but we have to pay for.
I hear what you're saying, but we went through the entire budgeting process assuming that we were gonna borrow the 120. And
so you wanna look at the.
Then temporary debt
Rest of the fund.
service has to show the 120 being paid
In
Okay.
the operating budget.
in the operating budget.
Okay, so that Linda has to get.
Unless you don't wanna,
right,
if you don't wanna change any of that, we'll make sure. And we're very near the debt. So temporary interest.
On our short term, right?
And temporary,
Principal.
repayment of temporary debt down there.
That's down below.
Principal,
Right there.
temporary, where you have the 216,000, I think that's.
120.
It's not there.
It's not there yet.
Right, would it go next to the 216 right here?
But it says principal on notes, are those the short-term notes?
Those are the short-term.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those are-
that's where
that's
it
it.
should go,
That's
for
right,
the
right there.
120,000 or whatever that number is.
Yeah.
Okay,
So whether it's coming from taxation
Regardless, you,
or
right,
anything
regardless,
else in
that's
the
where you
general fund.
expected to borrow
Right.
it from somewhere. Got it, okay.
so, for some
120.
reason Carrie hasn't,
Well, it should
projected anything there anyway.
Too late, it's my fault, we screwed that up.
Okay, all right, so can we go back to the
Back to the-
capital outlay?
Got it,
That's
okay.
Okay.
So IS&T came to the CIPC requesting $152,000, which was an increase of $32,000 over the previous annual allocation. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that MCAS now requires students to take the test online. And the tests are administered for hundreds of kids a day, all at the same time. So they have to be on the computer all at the same time, taking the test on the same day. And so that means that there's going to be an increase in the, not iPads, but the devices that they use to take the test. Chromebooks. There were some additional requests relating to, radios for the ambulance.
Servers for the library and
and the service for the library. So all of that added up to a request of $152,000. There was a lot of discussion on the CIPC among the members about not necessarily understanding the request and the details of the request. So some wanted to go to 100,000. Some others wanted to level fund at 120. We decided that this year we'd level fund at 120, which is what it was the year before. Ask Monty and the team to try to work within that, and then maybe spend this year getting a little clearer for the members of the CIPC to understand the budgeting and all of the details that are involved in replacement and so forth for computer replacement.
And is that reasonable? Was that reasonable?
That was kind of where we landed.
Okay.
The police department is replacing a cruiser out of the parking fund. Harbor Masters came requesting $20,000 for pilings and ladders and gangways. We had a conversation, as we alluded to earlier, that seemed more like maintenance and shouldn't probably be in the capital budget. So we split the difference and said we would allocate $10,000 out of waterways, but that they should really look to the operating budget to fund maintenance. Rob and the school committee came requesting that we replace 4 school buses at a cost of $327,000. The buses are, I think, 10 and 12 years old and are at this point no longer safe. So given where we were with respect to free cash and the status of the free cash that we had, which wasn't much, we went with approving 2 school buses this year and hoping that we can replace 2 more next year.
Isn't that what we did the last time? Did we do 2 and 2?
I think you bought all 4 right
You
out,
did?
right out front, and you,
Yeah.
don't know if you borrowed or not, I don't think you borrowed then either, you bought 4 right out front.
So
They
will
were
they,
borrowed
you,
before
will you
my
replace
time.
the
I think they
2
were
worst?
borrowed.
They
Will
were
you
borrowed.
replace the 2 oldest?
Vehicles we pay back
Yeah.
in 5 to 10 years.
My
so-
niece's bus, when it
5.
goes
8
over a
years,
bump,
maybe.
the
you
top
that one?
roof hatch opens and
Oh my
it
gosh.
dings the whole ride to school. Seems like so silly, but.
The other allocations we made are recommending is sidewalk patio repair. A great deal of the area around the schools, the sidewalks and the entryways are really kind of in a state of disrepair and are patched. To replace all of that with concrete, this was the concrete number, right, Rob? The 374 is, I think, is the concrete number.
Yes.
Would be $374,000. Rob has come up with a proposal where we reduce the amount of area that is actually paved and maybe get some landscaping or something and minimize the need to replace it. So we figured we'd allocate $50,000 toward that expense this year and try to make some progress. And in the meantime, patch where necessary.
Have Darlene just keep the garden club going.
Just expand it.
We can grow our own seedlings.
Seriously. It's incredible what they've done so far. Just keep going. Literally, yeah.
The students can have victory gardens.
In terms of our prioritization process for expenditures, replacing the smoke detector system seemed like it would be a very good thing to do. And playground equipment repair, we're recommending that we approve that because the playground equipment that is there and will be replaced is not safe. DPW. Moving right along. We are recommending that we approve the $17,000 requested for the asphalt and gravel compactor, which I understand gets a lot of use during the year. The sidewalk tractor plow, $85,000 was requested. I think a lot of people are appreciating that these days. Joe and team are actually leasing that Whacker Newson. I actually saw it the other day. I was like, I know what that is.
Great.
got stuck behind it leaving town.
We're leasing that this year, and the dealer is going to give us a credit toward a purchase, so it actually will be 72,000. We're recommending that we borrow to replace that because the only other machine that we have it's just not working, right? The TS excavator tracks and lower deck replacement. This is for the equipment at the transfer station. And that's gonna go any day now, right, Rich?
Yes.
Okay, so,
It's used every day.
yep. And so we've recommended that we not borrow 20,000. What we were looking to do was where we could borrow a larger amount for things that are eligible to be funded by debt, so that we would perhaps get a better interest rate. Roadway improvements, this is in addition to the Chapter 90 money of, I think it's 190,000 that we get from the state. The request was for 120,000, but we didn't have that money. So we allocated what remained of the budget as we were going through the process. 94,267 is what we're recommending. Down to the boilers. The Legion Hall boiler, I understand, is dangerous. Actually, wasn't that the one that was, no, it was the fire station. Fire station they managed to get replaced. That was the really dangerous one, but I understand the Legion boiler is also in bad shape and needs to be replaced, so we've approved that. We put off the library boiler because we want to give the Green Community Team time to...
They repaired the Pigeon Cove boiler?
They replaced it.
With what money?
I don't know what money he had.
I believe it was done as part of the last project, I'm not sure in specifics.
I don't know.
They asked for the boiler repair and something else. I'm not sure specifics beyond
I
that. I know
don't
they
think it
replaced
ever went through, did it, Joe? I mean, I've been confused about the
Well, I asked him
boilers.
directly, and he said it's done.
No, they replaced it.
They replaced
They
it.
replaced it, it's a new boiler.
Huh.
So
How did they pay for it?
I guess we'll have to
This has
ask
been on
him.
the list for a long time.
I'm sure he will.
Interesting question.
Works for me. I mean, they repair their fire trucks. They would be able to.
So the reason we decided to defer the library was that it seemed that it wasn't urgent, and we want to give the Green Community Team time on this question, and there was a request for central air in Town Hall, and a few other energy-related requests that we would give them time to look for grants that we could apply for, and maybe think of help to formulate a strategy for the town so that we're not necessarily buying into older approaches to heating and so forth. So that's why we deferred that. Library exterior door, not doof, and hardware. We think that 30,000 is going to cover that, Joe. That's a safety issue, and we made that a high priority to get that done. Yep. We're recommending that. T-Wharf restrooms ventilation upgrade.
Nice.
Thank goodness.
That's a priority. We deferred, as you see, Central Hall, Town Hall Central Air. I think that was it, right?
Yeah. And then this just got modified, that we'll put in here so you can
The
really
water and
see,
sewer.
see what
Yeah.
he was talking about.
Great. So, those are our recommendations. Any questions or comments on the capital? Did you have a question? No. Oh, I know. Better than none.
That's right. I can't, honestly, I was like, no. She was like, yeah, the alarm goes off the whole way to school, and we're on the bus for like a half an hour. I'm like, what? Let's just hope her bus is one of the older ones. I'll feel really bad if I'm like, guess what? You're getting a new bus.
Okay, can you open up
we didn't mention that you caught the grant writer that we had
Oh.
forgotten back in the operating.
Okay.
We had forgotten in the selectmen's budget to include grant writer.
Wow.
Do we have a placeholder in there for now?
Which is right here.
Right there, 52,000, yes. And then what was the original 2,600 in there for, do you know?
We purchased several things.
Purchase of services was miscellaneous items that are coming up that we need to deal with through the office. That's
Okay.
Every once in a
general
while, we have
operating.
to hire somebody to do something.
Right,
Yeah.
got it, okay.
But
That's right, okay. Okay, and then, do you wanna go over like the recap, the tax rate stuff, or is that, do we have to like now go back and redo everything?
yeah,
Yeah,
it's gonna fall out there. This is the one that you really wanna see the effects of.
Yeah.
But right now, for the
Yeah.
changes that you did, you know, we need to lower something else by about 33,000. So
Do we
forget
have an
these.
increase in for benefits? What percent do we have in the budget at the moment?
We need, Carrie's gonna come and tell us what,
But I mean, what's in the current version? It didn't look like that big an increase. No, it's not. Oops, zero, there, that's good.
no, 29,000, so 30,000.
Yeah, that's not gonna.
That's not gonna cover.
And life,
About 20.
she just didn't even put in.
10% is
She may have updated
$400,000.
it since and stuff that we should check tomorrow.
okay. Didn't you say it didn't look like she
I
had anything
thought
in
we had an
temporary and
increase in
short-term
there.
debt either? So is there a chance
No.
that none of her stuff is captured here?
Yeah, then
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know,
Well,
okay.
when we make our
That's
Yeah.
adjustment tomorrow, we'll look and stuff,
Okay.
right?
we'll trickle down.
If they send us a balanced
Yeah,
budget with no
uh,
benefits
oh, that's
increase,
in
send it
mine.
back.
Cause you put the 120 in, right? You
Right,
had
she
said-
may not have,
Yeah, so there's a chance
touched
that we
this
don't
for a
have, okay, so we can check with her tomorrow if she's
so the
feeling better.
33,000 in the hole will probably be worse the next time you see
I
it.
would think so.
Okay. All right, progress, right?
Yep.
Good progress,
Of a
no one
sort.
has killed each other, or like, no one stormed out or kicked anything so far.
So
Are there,
when this thing comes in at a big deficit, you have to send it to the bad guys and we'll fix it.
Yes, you will.
are there any other questions on any of the budgets or comments at this point? So, I know Mitch and Linda, you guys are gonna work with the harbor department, right? It seems like
Mitch
they
will.
need some
I will.
help. I
I'll
think they
do
need
all the
some help.
cleanup on this.
Okay, and then, hear back from Carrie. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else who we have to circle back with. No, I think we're good. I think you'll send us, in our packets, we'll just get a final, even if it's just electronically.
Yeah.
Perfect, great.
We got good news, about the retirement bill.
That's in there.
Was that in there?
Okay,
That's
great.
very good news.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. We have 2 more pieces of business. Don, do you wanna read, by law, Don just has to read the, warrants that he signed?
The part that everybody's been waiting for.
Hold on, let me thank everyone so people can leave if they want. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I know it's a long night, but I do feel like we're all in this together. And we're figuring it out, as Rob said.
Thank
Like,
you
we're all a
This was
team,
actually
and
really,
we'll
really
figure it out.
clear, and I don't know, there's just.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, guys.
It's been easier?
Okay,
or-
do you wanna read it?
I'm just.
Before you
No, no, that's
get off track, give it
Make sure I'm on.
This is gonna be a lot of.
Selectman Campbell signed the payroll warrant number 24, totaling $130,233.80. and expense warrant number 24 totaling $234,833.47 on December 13, 2017. Selectman Campbell signed the payroll warrant number 25 totaling $550,678.70, and expense warrant number 25 totaling $395,857.76 on December 19, 2017. Selectman Campbell signed the payroll warrant number 26 totaling $109,440,098, and expense warrant number 26 totaling $365,550.56 on December 28, 2017. Selectman Campbell signed the payroll warrant number 27 totaling $528,949.16, and expense warrant number 27 totaling $118,624.36 on January 3rd, 2018. Autographed copies available in the lobby.
And we have a motion to open the annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
I haven't made the motion.
Oh, just second, third, I want to go.
I move that the Board of Selectmen open the April 7, 2018 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further comments?
No.
Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The motion carries.
It's on the
It's,
schedule somewhere.
Mid-February, second week of
Tuesday.
February. I think,
Like
closing.
4 to 6 weeks, something like that.
Great.
In
Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in,
Thank
any
you.
further comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Mhm.